The story begins in China, a country that has contributed to the world's martial arts heritage by attracting those who aspire to master the art. The action takes place in one of the schools in the city of Suzhou, known as Shiyi. At one of the martial arts classes, many students gathered, almost indistinguishable from each other, and only one young man, sitting alone, stood out. His name was Ling Xiao, and his face carried sadness, but at a certain moment, his behavior changed dramatically, as if he had been replaced by a completely different person. Ling Xiao himself thought that he was in some kind of illusion, and the guy couldn't understand why he was here, but the area seemed surprisingly familiar to him. The martial arts lesson proceeded as usual, the students admiring their teacher as they always did. Suddenly, the hero realizes that he has already seen this place before, and this was the same school where he studied and took exams at the age of 17. Ling Xiao looked at his reflection in the mirror and realized that it was really him, as he was at 17 years old, and it was incredible, but it seems the guy went back in time. This young man was not just a schoolboy, and in real life, he was the most powerful among the immortals, becoming the greatest hero in the history of the celestial world. Even 3 alliances and 5 emperors could not resist him, and no one foresaw that he was destined to die at the hands of a villain and lose his beloved woman. Ling Xiao's death did not lead him to heaven or hell, but to the very beginning, where, apparently, fate provided him with a unique chance. Heaven gave him the opportunity to relive his life so that the 9 gods, the emperor, and even the scoundrel would receive the retribution they deserved. A strange thing happened to the body. Starting from the legs, a magical force resembling blue fire enveloped it. This was Shan Ju's constitution, and Ling Xiao was surprised to realize that he had reached the cultivation stage and had activated the flow of energy. At this time, the exam continued, and the leader once again announced the name of the next student who should go on stage, and this student turned out to be Xiu Qing, a beautiful girl with heavenly blue eyes and long black hair. Ling Xiao couldn't believe his eyes, and standing in front of him was his beloved, exactly the same as many years ago, and memories of her death surfaced before him. The student approached a special tool and hit the required place with force, and the power of her blow was 166 kilograms, and she deservedly received high praise. 2 guys standing nearby were happy for her, and she passed the test with flying colors, and proved that her value is not limited only to her appearance. Ling Xiao, who had not yet fully recovered from the shock, quickly approached her, pushing the students around, and his hand randomly ended up on the chest of one of the girls. Her name was Xiu Qian, and the situation became extremely awkward, and it was clear from the girl's expression that she was literally seeing things with anger. Ling Xiao hesitated, quickly removed his hand, and hurriedly began to apologize, claiming that he did not mean anything like that. However, the student no longer listened to his excuses, and she immediately grabbed her favorite tool, a long whip. Shouts that Ling Xiao was a pervert accompanied by her attack, and she threatened that he would now be punished, and the hero barely had time to jump back and began to disperse peacefully. Xiu Qian was still raging with anger, and his simple apologies were unable to satisfy her, and the only way out, it seemed, was to ask the pervert to break his neck. Only Xiu Qing was able to calm her down, and she came to the guy's defense, begging her friend to calm down, because the guy only came here to take a physical exam. The hero was truly spared at this moment, because right now it was his turn to go through the measurement of strength. However, before that, Xiu Qing decided to clarify whether this was really the Ling Xiao that everyone was talking about. The guy did not immediately realize the question, forgetting that she did not know him at that time, and Xiu Qian still held a grudge against him. Despite the fact that they had been waiting for him at the simulator for several minutes, Ling Xiao did not miss the opportunity to show off and agreed, yes, it was him. The exam leader was already losing patience, and the hero had to hurry up. Approaching the instrument, the guy was thinking about how much to use his strength, because too much effort could lead to unnecessary problems. Still offended by him, Xiu Qian said that with such a weak body, he should at least knock out 80 kilograms, and the best result for him is just a dream. Ling Xiao decides that 500 kilograms will be enough, and with his thoughts, he greatly delayed everyone around him, asking him to speed up and not be so timid. When the guy struck, almost breaking the meter, it seemed that some kind of unusual energy was emanating from him, visible to the eyes. Everyone present was shocked. Ling Xiao's result was 700 kilograms. He had clearly gone too far. Soon the exam was over, and the guy picked up his phone. Not needed to know something very important. He wrote to his older brother and asked where he was, and fortunately his relative was at home, and the hero was happy, because on the day of his exam something terrible happened to him. In his previous life, upon returning from taking his exams, Ling Xiao discovered that his elder brother had committed suicide. Ling Xiao makes a decision and will never allow this to happen again, and he is not going to lose his brother again. The hero was planning to leave the place, but it seemed that someone else had questions for him, and Xiuqian shouted at him to stop. Perhaps they didn't hear him, and the guy left, which made the girl even more angry, and it seems that she intends to catch up with him. Approaching the meter, Xiuqing discovered that the blow had destroyed it, turning it into a pile of iron. Taking one of the parts in her hand, she examined the mark of the monster's fist, and when did a person with such power appear in their academy? The guy changed into a smart suit and rushed home with all his might, and he was impatient to see his brother, whom he had not seen for many years. Ling Xiao opened the front doors with a bang and shouted his name, and right now he wanted most of all to talk to his relative. His brother was named Ling Xian, and although he was alive and well, he was in a wheelchair, and marveling at the speed of his brother's return, he ordered him to quickly wash his hands and sit down at the table. The hero immediately threw himself into the arms of his older brother and expressed how much he missed him. It was clear from his face that he was very excited, and Ling Xiao asked if everything was okay with Ling Xian, to which he replied, of course, with great surprise. The thought flashed through the older brother's mind that the hero had probably failed his exam again. The reason was completely different. Both decided to forget about this strange situation and hurry to the table. Ling Xian decides that this is their destiny, and as it turned out, he did not have any special powers, and since childhood he was often sick. In fact, Ling Xiao came so quickly not because he failed the exam, and he passed it so well that he will soon begin to receive invitations from the best universities in the country. At first the elder brother didn't really believe what he heard, and his face reflected great surprise and joy for his younger brother. At a table laden with delicious food, the brothers were talking about how wonderful it was that the guy had successfully passed the exam, and now the future of the family depends on him. Ling Xian regrets that he was unable to protect the martial arts school in his time, and this happened immediately after their father left. He believes that a loser like him shouldn't drag his little brother down, and it would be better if no one knew that they were family. Ling Xian's mind immediately flashes back to the day they had to save their lives. Ling Xiao asks Big Brother not to say such things. Soon they will definitely return everything that rightfully belongs to them. He begs to believe that in 6 months he will be able to find a way to restore the health of his relative, and his brother should not lose faith in himself. Ling Xian was well aware that his younger brother sincerely wanted to help him, but unfortunately, the task was not as simple as it seemed. Their conversation was suddenly interrupted by a woman's voice, and the girl demanded that her older brother leave the house as soon as possible, calling him trash. There were 2 unexpected guests, a tall blonde and a short middle-aged man, and the first thing that caught my eye was the baldness of a man named Yu Dechong. The girl turned out to be Ling Xian's friend, and, as it turned out, she found true love, not wanting to continue her relationship with a disabled person. The hero immediately had the idea that it was this event that pushed his brother to attempt suicide the last time. The abandoned guy was in shock, and it was incredibly difficult for him to understand how his love could do this to him, given his many years of relationship. And it was true, and B the blonde noted that her new partner is rich, and in addition, is able to move independently. The girl's new lover intervened in the conversation, claiming that she was very kind to the disabled person and even offered him some financial help. They believed that the guy in the wheelchair should be grateful because, in their opinion, no one needed him anyway, and they at least provided him with financial support. The girl said that she was not satisfied with their relationship, and after all, in all the years of dating, she had never been taken to a restaurant, while her new partner gave her a bag worth $4,000 on the very first day. A balding man approached the guy and said that he was a nonentity, unable to utter a word in such a situation. All this time, Ling Xiao stood aside, barely restraining his emotions, and he wanted to put these two scoundrels in their place. At some point, Ling Xian could not stand it and announced that he was breaking up with his girlfriend, not wanting to see her in the future. After these words, Yu Dechang hit his elder brother because he dared to insult his beloved Li Jiao. As a result, Ling Xian fell from his chair, and the man continued to kick him, believing that he had forgotten his place and needed to be taught a lesson. The younger brother could not tolerate this and hit the scoundrel in the leg, after which he fell to the floor with a loud sound. Immediately after this, Ling Xiao explained with a powerful kick that no one has the right to behave like this towards his family. Yu Dechang began to bleed and swore heavily at the guy, claiming that his leg was probably broken. The next blow was even stronger, and the man had to keep his mouth shut. At this moment, Li Jiao could not stand it and attacked the guy, ordering him to move away from his older brother and asking who he thought he was. But Ling Xiao was so angry at that moment that he was ready to teach her a lesson, and the girl believed that he would not dare to hit her. It turned out that she was wrong, and the guy didn't care what happened on the floor when his loved ones were hurt. The blonde said that her boyfriend's younger brother is not a man, not a person, but simply a shameless fool who would not think of hitting a woman. In response to this, the guy said that he would never hit a woman, but she was a creature who betrayed his older brother. He decided to once again show who was boss and stomped on new guy Li Jiao's head, forcing him to beg to be let go. Ling Xiao began to wonder where all the aggression with which this idiot beat his older brother had disappeared. The man apologized and promised that this would not happen again, and the hero warned him that next time he would not be so lenient. At the end, he hit Yu Dechang hard in the stomach and ordered her to leave this house as quickly as possible. When the couple was already leaving, the guy realized that his strength might not be enough, and if he took their lives, then he would be in big trouble. At the end of the conflict, the younger told the elder that perhaps he would like to stop him, but Ling Xian simply thanked him for his help and protection. After one incident, the guy realized that his girlfriend was only interested in material matters, and since then she stopped communicating with him. Even after selling his favorite things, the guy bought a gift, but she still left for another man. The hero changed the subject, claiming that he had medicine for a relative, and suggested they wait for a while. Ling Xian, upon hearing this, or at least imagining this, said that he was looking forward to traveling together. The guy was also happy because it seemed to him that the long-standing pain in his brother's heart had finally disappeared. At this time, Yu Dechang was talking on the phone, calling himself Big Daddy and talking about how he was beaten by a schoolboy and needed to gather people. Today, he wanted two brothers to be killed, and this rich bald man provided not a cheap pleasure in the form of murder. At the other end of the telephone line, they announced a price. One life could be bought for 1 million. With a worried expression on her face, Li Jiao X asked her new boyfriend if he was really going to kill them because they would become the prime suspects. Yu Dechang flared up at these questions, telling the girl not to split hairs, since smart people had already decided everything for her. The man spent a whole 2 million for a reason, and now they could only wait and enjoy, and tomorrow there would be a headline in the newspapers about the tragic death of the Lin brothers. At this time, Ling Xiao was calmly washing the dishes after dinner when suddenly someone knocked on the door. The brothers said that he would open the door, although they were not expecting guests, so the situation seemed strange. Yu Dechang had a dark past and was a scary person, and the guy just beat him up, and this man is definitely not someone who will give up easily. Most likely, he will begin to take revenge. With such thoughts, the hero opened the front door, ready for a fight with several opponents, and there was determination on his face. But turning out to be not the villains, these were the two girls he saw at the exam in the morning, and Xiuqing was slightly afraid of his reaction. The girl asked why he was so angry, and the hero embarrassedly asked why they had come. Xiaoqing said that she brought her sister to apologize since she shouldn't have disturbed him during the exam. She then asked Xiaoqian to do the same, but she did not feel guilty since he started first. At this moment, Ling Xiao's memories are upstairs, and in a previous life, after the death of his brother, he plunged into deep depression and moved away from people. His beloved, for his sake, gave her life, and she was one of those to whom he really wanted to apologize. Due to overwhelming feelings, the guy briefly forgot which universe he was in and promised Xiaoqing that he would not allow her to suffer in this life. Her sister reacted instantly, taking out her whip again to save the girl from this pervert. After all, out of the kindness of her soul, her sister apologized for something she didn't even do, and he started groping her. The guy once again apologized for his behavior, claiming that she just reminded him of an old friend and asked not to take it to heart. The friend immediately began to make excuses, claiming that there was nothing wrong with it, but they should have already gone home. After that, she turned to her sister with a face full of anger, insistently asking her to hide this thing. Xiaoqing grabbed Xiaoqian's hand and said that her rude behavior always caused problems for them. It was clear from her face that she was very shy, and her cheeks turned red. Ling Xiao ran up to them and offered to accompany them home, fearing that they might get hurt because of Yu Dechong. Before leaving, the younger one warned his brother that he was leaving but would be back in a few minutes. Xiaoqian did not want the guy to follow them, fearing that he might pester in the narrow alley, and her sister asked her not to say such things. It seemed like she didn't mind the guy walking them off, while her sister wondered why the girl wasn't on her side. In the end, Ling Xiao still went with them, and an ex's house was nearby, and it shouldn't take long. It was clear from the face of his lover that she was glad that the guy joined them, and perhaps she already had feelings for him then. Ling Xiao also looked pleased, thanking fate for another chance, and he will do everything possible to prevent her death this time. Xiaoqian, seeing the guy's satisfied face, became furious again, still believing that he had obscene intentions. A few minutes later they said goodbye, and the girl with white hair expressed the hope of never seeing the hero again. As soon as they parted, Ling Xiao heard a noise in the bushes nearby, and immediately he understood what was happening. The guy turned to the rats hiding nearby and advised them to quickly get out. Realizing that further hiding is useless, the hired killers, acting on the orders of the villain, emerge from the shadows and are attacked by several people. Perhaps the main figure among them was a guy with pink hair and a scar all over his face, and he informed the hero that a reward of 1 million was put on his head. In response, Ling Xiao smiled and remarked that these guys were really naive to risk their lives for a few million. The guy's reaction amused the villain, and he decided that he needed to give this brother a lesson and stop such colloquial address. This man was the leader of a gang considered the second most powerful in the city, and he pulled out a knife and attacked the guy with a sharp movement. Ling Xiao avoided the attack with ease, but it was revealed that the knife was a special chi weapon imbued with magic. The killer confirmed that this was the case, and this was another reason to get rid of this schoolboy. He should not have known about it. The hero decides that the moment has come for a counterattack and attacks the enemy. His fist is filled with energy, allowing him to resist melee weapons with his bare hands. The guy's strength turns out to be stronger than the magic knife, and after this attack the bandit can barely stand on his feet. All the attackers were frightened, realizing that Ling Xiao was greatly superior to them in strength, and there is nothing to compare with her now. The hero orders them to kneel, offering them a chance to escape alive, and however, they were still trying to kill his brother, so they should be punished. Only after mastering the 8 elements of Qi can one reach the stage of a normal Qi body, but how could this guy such achieve strength? Ling Xiao addresses the villains and asks why they are paralyzed and not moving when he can easily approach them. One of the mercenaries asks the leader what they should do, and if they continue to fight, they will die anyway. Fighting such a person, even for money, is like fighting an atomic bomb with a kitchen knife. They need to run. It's not worth it. Yu Dechang forced them to fight against such a powerful person, and they should have found this idiot and inflicted a well-deserved defeat on him. The guy hears their conversation and orders them to stand still, and he won't let them just leave. The hero is not going to just let them go, and he wants to make an example out of them so that any mercenary will think carefully before taking an order on his head. Bandits with frightened faces ask what the hero wants from them, and the main one asks not to touch the brothers, claiming that it was he who attacked them. To Ling Xiao, their lives seemed equally insignificant, but the dagger imbued with a special type of magic especially attracted his attention. The mercenary spent a lot of money on this dagger on the black market, but came to the conclusion that preserving life was most important. Kindly handing the knife to the hero, the mercenary apologized, begging for mercy and asking not to take their lives. The guy happily accepts the weapon from the villain's hands, at this moment completely in control of the situation and having freedom of action. Having received what he wanted, Ling Xiao lets the gang go, warning that if he sees them even a kilometer from his home, they will not escape trouble. The attackers probably did not even hear his last words, immediately starting to run as fast as they could. At this moment, the hero breathed a sigh of relief, and despite his apparent mastery of the situation, he knew that in reality everything was not so simple. He was in almost mortal danger as the weapon was imbued with 2 layers of qi and nearly broke his protective barrier. It was only thanks to Shinju's strength that he was able to attack successfully, and without this, he would have faced serious difficulties. Currently, the guy was in the first stage of using Gon Qi, known as normal Qi body. The God Sutra had a unique power, unlike anything else, and it was thanks to this technique that Ling Xiao became an emperor in his previous life. As for this knife, it belongs to the ordinary weapon of the second stage, and there were 10 stages, and legendary weapons are found in stages 8 to 10. For an ordinary person, it is quite good to have a first stage weapon. It could cause significant damage if only the opponent was not a grandmaster. However, any Qi weapon can be upgraded, and a high-level cultivator is capable of creating the most powerful weapons. Unfortunately, masters above the 8th stage rarely do this, since their strength allows them to fight with their bare hands. When the guy returned home, his older brother, with a frightened expression on his face, asked where he had been all this time. The younger one replied that he was just walking the girls home and talking with them a little along the way, and it's okay. Ling Xian was very happy for his brother and praised him for his development in several directions, recommending that he not miss out on a girl like Xiuqing. Ling Xiao agreed and said that she is indeed very graceful, and from now on he was going to go to bed early and advised his brother to do the same. Lying on the bed, the guy thought that it would be great to improve his today's trophy, and he needed to do it before the exam results were announced. The second-rank weapon becomes an ideal object for experimentation, and Ling Xiao decides not to wait, but to test it right now. The unique power that Ling Xiao possessed in his previous life allowed him to cultivate weapons of any rank. However, he didn't have that kind of power at the moment, and he needed to upgrade the blade before the sun rose the next day. Suddenly the weapon falls out of the hero's hands, and it was hard to believe, but it seems that he failed in this task. The guy never imagined that, as a god emperor, he would not be able to improve the second stage weapon, and if the Celestials knew about this, they would probably burst into laughter. But it wasn't that important, and he will be able to deal with Li Jiao and Yu Dechang even without using this knife. Now those who drove his brother to suicide and abused him in front of everyone will pay for their actions. The hero remembers the day of his older brother's funeral, when Li Jiao blamed him for his death, declaring him a disgrace to the family. Yu Dechang was also there, trying to calm the woman down, saying that this high school student was just an ordinary loser, and there was no need to be nervous about him. These rumors spread quickly, and soon everyone around them believed this lie, blaming the younger brother for the death of his relative. It was because of Li Jiao that all the blame fell on the boy's shoulders, but thanks to this, he became obsessed with training, which eventually paid off. In this life, he will make this woman pay for all the pain she brought to his family. Events shift to Yu Dechang's villa, a huge mansion surrounded in the dead of night. At this time, the couple was having fun in the bathroom. Not a drop of regret was visible on their faces, because both brothers, in their opinion, were now dead. However, their fun is interrupted by one of the bodyguards, turning to the owner of the house and reporting that they have found the one they have been looking for so long. Yu Dechang is furious. He doesn't like it when his rest is interrupted. He has repeatedly ordered not to disturb him. The guy can only say that this person is now in the living room, and if you don't approach him in 5 minutes, he will leave. It was Xie Jin, a good fighter with a third-stage chi body, and he doesn't like being kept waiting. The man is ready to pay any amount. The strength of this man is worth every coin. He just needs to deal with one schoolboy. But the guy with the scar warns that this is no ordinary schoolboy, because he wields Gan Chi, and even his knife could not penetrate his armor. Xie Jin is skeptical of his story and tells him to remain silent, claiming that a student cannot have the strength necessary to use Gan Chi, which requires a minimum of 8th level Chi. The mercenary begs him to believe his eyes, claiming that this monster easily deprived him of his weapon. However, the people at the table think he is crazy, and his words are difficult to believe. The bandit continues to persuade, claiming that even weapons are powerless against him, despite the doubts of his listeners. Xie Jin, tired of the useless argument, decides to act, and his blow throws the pink-haired man several meters away. The martial artist makes another attack while the unfortunate man lies on the ground, showing off his outstanding fighting technique. Then he announces his price of 2 million for the murder, and the owner of the house agrees, ready to pay for both brothers. The mercenary sets out to complete the task without wasting time. Yu Dechang expresses her satisfaction at having a lot of money, since it saves her from the need for bloody deeds. Li Jiao notes how nice it is to have financial security, freeing his protector from having to do terrible things. But Li Jiao was not interested in her brothers just dying. She wanted them to leave this world in a terrible way, and suddenly cries for help were heard from the next room. It turned out that Ling Xiao was standing on the second floor and declared that they were both real monsters who should go to hell. If Yu Dechang was going to kill him, then why not do it right now, if she had the strength, of course. The man shouts to his guards to cover him quickly. He doesn't understand how this brat was able to get into his house. The hero suggests that he doesn't think about how he got here, given that his guards turned out to be extremely ineffective, and now he better take care of his life. He then throws his special nuts, deadly despite their appearance, at the guards, and all the guards were neutralized. Ling Xiao intended to smash the head of the master of the house, but his guards sacrificed themselves to save Yu Dechang, and however, this did not save them from inevitable justice. The guy climbs onto the balcony railing and takes out his weapon, and now he is going to make this couple answer for their crimes. After bullying his brother and hiring assassins to get rid of them, it's time for payback, and everything will change soon. The man immediately hides behind the girl and claims that it's all her fault, because it was she who came up with this whole plan with the hired killers. Li Jiao doesn't understand why this loser is saying such nonsense, since this entire plan was her initiative from start to finish. The hero did not care who was the first to kill his family. They both cannot escape retribution. Suddenly, his weapon collides with a stranger's fist, and Ling Xiao didn't expect that there was someone else in the house. It turned out to be Xie Jin, and on his block, the stick broke, and he realized that this was exactly the guy he was assigned to kill. Frightened, Yu Dechang begs to kill the hero in any way, and then she will pay the killer as much as he wants. At that moment, Ling Xiao used a force equal to 900 kilograms, but this guy blocked the blow effortlessly, and he was clearly at least at the 3rd stage of Qi. Xie Jin appreciated the guy's strength and said that he wants 11 million for his head, and for less he is not ready to risk his life. Even the rich man thought about such a sum, and apparently, his fortune was not unlimited, and he asks for a discount. Li Jiao wonders if Yu Dechang is really going to give a fortune to this guy, since they are not even sure if he is capable of defeating the schoolboy. Hearing these words, Xie Jin begins to get irritated and they underestimate him, so he raises the price to 12 million. The man agrees. At that moment, he has no other choice, and he only asks the mercenary to hurry up and do his job. Taking advantage of the moment, the hero attacks when the enemy looks away, and he could decide the outcome of the fight with one powerful blow. The fighter with the headband easily grabs the guy's fist and declares that his cheap attacks will never get through to him. Now the games are over and things are getting serious, and the world of martial arts turns out to be much harsher than it seems at first glance. With the same ease, the hero parries the opponent's blow, and as a result, they find themselves in a situation where it is difficult to determine which of them has the advantage. Xiejin does not believe what happened, and he is trying to understand what martial arts Ling Xiao knows and how he managed to stop a 700-kilogram attack. The guy retreats, thinking that a person at the third level of Qi cannot throw a punch weighing 700 kilograms. He felt that the enemy was at least at 5 levels, that is, halfway to achieving the normal Qi body. Xiejin decides not to waste time and immediately launches a second attack, and the fight promises to be extremely difficult, and you shouldn't waste a second. The hero is moving in the right direction as his opponent loses his composure with each passing second, and he needs to complete the battle as quickly as possible with his current strength. The young man found himself in the most difficult situation in a battle between highly skilled cultivators, and in this confrontation, the strength of the stronger could bring victory through unified might. The mercenary inquired if these were all the skills that the hero was capable of, and just a few minutes ago he had behaved arrogantly, but now he seemed cowardly, like a mouse. The fight continued, the opponents exchanged blows, and their attacks were incredibly fast, their movements were impossible to catch. Xiejin believed that he was stronger than Ling Xiao, but his movements remained imperfect, and at a certain moment the bandit found himself vulnerable, giving the guy a chance to strike. Concentrating all his strength in his fist, the guy filled it with incredible energy. A moment later there was a sharp lunge forward. The blow turned out to be extremely powerful, throwing the opponent several meters away. At first, it seemed to the mercenary that the blow did not harm him, but after a second he felt a sharp pain in his body. In cultivator duels, the only way to defeat a stronger opponent was to use Dianduan. The guy concentrated all his strength into his fist, knowing that after this movement his hand would be numb for half an hour, and he needed to increase his strength as soon as possible. The couple standing behind were shaking with fear, seeing that their fighter was losing, for their own lives depended on his defeat. Xiejin started bleeding from his mouth, and the blow he received was extremely strong, and his injury was serious. But he was not going to give up, and wiping the blood from his chin, the guy praised his opponent, not expecting that this schoolboy had such a technique. Now the hero had one arm paralyzed, but his enemy's strength had dropped by 300 kilograms, making it impossible to kill Ling Xiao with such power. The mercenary suddenly pulled out a yellow capsule from a hidden pocket, talking about the unusual school where he mastered this technique. It was explained to him that strength can be increased not only through the practice of martial arts, and by swallowing the capsule, he increased his strength, considering it a magnificent achievement of humanity. In addition, he put on combat gloves, and when he looked at them, the guy remembered that he had seen them earlier. These were his brother's gloves, which he sold to buy Li Jiao's necklace, but they served as the weapon of the Ling family. Xiejin intended to show Ling Xiao the difference between a high school student and a real martial artist. From the powerful blow, the guy flew several meters away and crashed into a wall, and the attack was so strong that the barrier crumbled into small pieces. The two scoundrels continued to stand side by side and nod their heads, expressing hope that their younger brother would die today. Instead of taking damage, Ling Xiao seemed to become even stronger after the powerful attack. Xiejin realized that something was wrong. His punch, combined with the strength of the gloves, reached 1,000 kilograms, but why was this guy still alive? Spitting blood, the hero thought that the blow from these gloves was the same, but the force was somehow different, and in this, indeed, was very effective. About his life after his brother's death, he could not find any connections with him or his family members. The only thing Ling Xiao remembered was the pain he felt from his brother during their training together, and the pain remained in his memory forever. The hero made a promise to himself that in this life he would never lose what was dear to him. Yu Dechang stood behind, hurrying Xie Jin, and the student was still incapacitated and had to be completed urgently. The mercenary stood motionless, his face expressing shock, and he realized that the guy with the scar on his face was telling the truth. His opponent actually possessed Kong Qi, and even as a schoolboy, he was able to collect 8 elements. Ling Xiao charged, intending to end this fight with one powerful blow. Xie Jin wondered if his opponent was trying to deceive him, because achieving such strength at such a young age seemed simply impossible. At the center of the attack, the guy pulled out a pre-prepared weapon from the sleeve of his jacket, and although he failed to strengthen the blade, the weapon could still help him. At that moment, it didn't matter what the guy with the headband thought, because in any case, he won this fight. With one precise blow, the guy severed his opponent's carotid artery. The trickle of blood from his throat indicated that he should have just lay there, and he had taken many lives, and now death had come to him. After this, Yu Dechang and Li Jiao became the center of attention. At first, Ling Xiao planned to kill them indiscriminately, but then decided that there was an option in which they remained alive. If a man gives him records of all his connections, he will be spared, and this man has shed a lot of blood. Yu Dechang looked like a landlord, but he was actually a big drug dealer, and the hero had investigated this case in his past life and knew his true identity. The man tried to claim that he had done nothing wrong, and it was all Li Jiao's fault, and he himself knew nothing. His words infuriated the girl, and at that moment she realized that she had made a mistake in choosing him as her partner. In fact, Li Jiao was only asking her new boyfriend to help her end her relationship with Xiu Qian, not to kill him. As a result, Yu Dechang harshly slapped the girl in the face and ordered her to shut up, warning her that otherwise he himself would end her today. These two were like a cat and a dog, and the guy couldn't stand them anymore, wanting this to end quickly. After she was hit, the woman said that this man was not the love of her life, but just an obese pig. She knew where the bandit kept all his notes and promised to bring them immediately. Yu Dechang tried his best to stop her, but Ling Xiao warned him that if he came even an inch closer, he would suffer the same fate as the fighter he hired as a mercenary. Li Jiao quickly headed to the second floor, and her new partner was indeed a drug dealer, and she understood this very well. Then the sound of a siren was heard outside the window, and the police arrived just in time. As it turned out, the hero called the police in advance, and Yu Dechang realized at that moment that his happy days would end today. The guy was an honest citizen and was not going to let a dangerous criminal go so easily. The man had committed enough crimes to be killed, but he didn't want to get his hands dirty when the police could handle it just fine. At this time, Li Jiao walked in carrying a stack of books containing records of all the crimes. The girl was stunned to see the crowd of police officers in the living room, and she would not be able to escape the well-deserved punishment. The action moved to the police station, where 2 criminals were transferred, and Ling Xiao was there, thanking the policeman for his help. Police Captain Hua Yin praised the hero, noting that without his participation it would have been difficult for them to catch them, and the attackers were operating under false names. It turned out that the police had been trying to arrest the drug dealer for the last 6 months, and thanks to the young man they succeeded. Ling Xiao pretended that he was just lucky that the police arrived in time, and the guy pretended that without their help he could have faced serious problems. Xie Jin survived the attack and was arrested at the scene of the crime, where he claimed many lives. The hero asked the captain how to punish the drug dealer, and this information was important for the guy. Since Yu Dechang had committed many crimes, the death penalty was the only possible punishment option. Imprisoning this man would be too lenient a decision, and now Ling Xiao could safely return home. Luckily, the hero managed to hide his brother's gloves, and if the police had discovered them, they could have been confiscated, and these gloves were important to him. These gloves had been in the family for many years, and the older brother would be glad to see them again, and they were like family to him. Meanwhile, The customer and the performer were sitting in a prison cell, and the man understood that his fate was decided. The guy still couldn't believe that he was defeated by an ordinary high school student, and he did not give up and continued to seek revenge. He suddenly grabbed Yu Dechang's throat, eager to extract all the information he could from him about who defeated him today. Xie Jin wanted to know all the details, the address, the school, and all this information was valuable to him, and the man told everything he knew. This was enough for the guy, and apparently a plan for revenge had already matured in his head. He then took out a small phone from his hidden pocket, which he used to easily contact his men. The next morning, the two brothers were talking at home, and the elder asked where the younger found his gloves, and Ling Xiao made up a story that he bought them from a used clothing store. Ling Xian was touched by this, remembering all those happy days when they trained together in the family gym. This had an impressive effect on him, and he hugged the item tightly, showing respect for his younger brother, and to him it was undoubtedly a valuable artifact. In addition, he assumed that these things were obtained by the hero with great difficulty, but he did not investigate this in more detail, simply sincerely thanking his brother. They exchanged promises that they would never lose this family heirloom, and the gloves would become a symbol of their strong friendship. After a while, someone knocked on their door, which was strange, because they were not expecting guests, and it was still very early. It turned out that it was Li Yang, a short guy who looked scared, obviously running here from somewhere. This guy was Ling Xiao's only friend in his previous life when no one else supported him after his brother's death, and he always tried to help. Li Yang's face was shabby, and he said that he had very important information on which their lives could depend. Li Yang said that the dark matter faction was going to kill them, and Ling Xiao would have to be hung on the largest bridge in the city. He learned this from his father, who works there, and strongly advises his brothers to leave the city. The hero has no intention of running away, and if they dare to enter his house, he has the strength to show them the place. But his friend warns that this guy is crazy, and this is a faction of dark matter, an organization above the police, and its members are incredibly powerful. Ling Xiao of course knows about this, but he has no intention of running away, and if he does this today, then the next day they will come for Li Yan. It was too dangerous, and if nothing was done, their chances of winning would be minimal, and a plan had to be developed. In the hero's previous life, it was easy to drink, but now he won't let anyone look down on him, and he doesn't care how strong his enemies are, he can handle any of them. He thinks that this blonde guy is somehow connected to the dark matter faction. Perhaps he asked for revenge, or maybe he is connected to someone from prison. Deciding everything quickly, Ling Xiao asks his comrade to take his older brother to a safe place, and his health is most important now. The guy asks Ling Xian to lend him his gloves for one night, and the brother agrees to trust his junior, but warns him to be as careful as possible. Xie Jin didn't know the real power of these gloves. Their power was tens of times greater than he imagined. Ling Xiao had already had experience with the dark matter faction in his past life, but he didn't expect them to appear here so quickly. Thanks to his life experience, he understood that the whole world is divided into light and darkness. The police represent the core of justice and are the most powerful organization in China due to their reach throughout the country. The dark matter faction is currently made up of fallen fighters, varying in strength and divisions, but one thing remains the same. Among all the members of this gang, it is difficult to find at least one decent person. After all, those who break the laws of martial arts find it difficult to find normal work, and after they acquire the stigma of a traitor, they have no choice but to join the ranks of the dark matter faction. The hero rejoices that his fate is very different from the fate of those fighters who lost their path and came to the dark side. He strives to leave this sinful world, because his long-awaited place awaits him in the world of immortals, although for now he still needs to improve his dagger. After all, this foray into the world of weapons requires a significant investment, and it must be remembered that such weapons can only be upgraded twice. The hero has one last chance, and if he fails this time, the dagger will become useless. Ling Xiao concentrated and put in all his effort, and fortunately, he finally succeeded. The blade was enveloped in a glowing blue sheath, completely transforming, and soon the knife would undergo significant changes in its appearance. Suddenly something strange happens, and the metamorphosis of weapons suddenly stops, and the hero has already improved many items, but he has never seen anything like this before. It turns out that a double transformation had occurred, which was only in Ling Xiao's favor, and this blade promised to become a terrifying weapon. Suddenly, this weapon gained authorized status, which meant that it now had a unique property. This particular knife now consisted of 2 forms of fire and water, and could be easily moved between them. Moreover, the forms could be changed, and not only the level increased, but the appearance of the authorized weapon always looked much more impressive. The guy was looking forward to testing his new blade, and he thought that a vase, which he had never liked, would be perfect for this. Taking the new blade in his hands, he swung it upward, and immediately after that a powerful shock wave appeared. It turned out that there was too much energy, and this blow destroyed not only the vase, but also the table, and now both of them will have to be replaced. Currently, the knife was in water mode, and Ling Xiao wondered what it would look like in fire form, and decides to use this form against the members of the Dark Matter faction. Late at night, a man dressed as Xiejin Kuan, Xiejin's older brother and the leader of the Quan Kuren group, approaches his house. First, the man decides to test the strength of the doors in the house where the one he intended to kill that evening lived. With a strong blow, Xiejin Kuan knocks out the entrance doors, with such force that the boards fly several meters. The hero was already waiting for him inside with a new blade, with which he easily cut the remains of the front door. Then the guy calmly sits down on the sofa and says that the unwanted guest is now obliged to pay him for the repairs. The man asks him if he is the same Ling Xiao who almost killed his younger brother. The hero confirms that it was really him, and he does not regret anything, since the relative deserved everything he received. After these words, Xiejin Kuan seems to lose his mind, rushes forward, shouting that he will definitely avenge his brother. In the blink of an eye, he makes a powerful and fast punch with his right hand, but for some reason his fist does not reach the target. It turns out that Ling Xiao manages to repel the enemy's attack with her apparently even higher speed. He asks if the man really intends to kill him with such a slight move, without worrying about all his ribs being broken. Xiejin Kuren became even more angry, intensifying his strikes in the belief that he was stronger than his opponent. Overcoming the hero's defense was not easy, and sparks began between their fists, as if tension had arisen. In response, Ling Xiao only retreated while his opponent showed aggression, having difficulty controlling his emotions. Senior brother Xiejin relied on brute force, raising questions about the low level of martial arts of the third-stage fighters. Xiejin Kuan noted that he had not met such an interesting opponent for a long time, recognizing the strength of the city's fighters. The man promised to color this night red, the color of Ling Xiao's blood. The opponent's blow had a force of 2,000 kilograms. No one had withstood it before. The enemy was confident of his victory, concentrating on the attack and expecting the hero to be subdued. However, the guy deftly touched the man's hand, a quick movement barely noticeable to the eye. It was not a blow, but a deft move, and it seemed that this strong guy was not only relying on strength. Ling Xiao hit his opponent with force using his brother's gloves, showing that even his brother was stronger than this opponent. Xiejin Kuan could not follow the hero's movements, annoyed that he was laughing at him. The guy claimed that he was not laughing, but was only stating a fact. The man promised to catch the brat and give him hell on earth, causing Xiejin Kuan to rage. Each blow contained a minimum of 1,500 kilograms of force, and Ling Xiao had to be careful not to die. What's worse is that his own gloved punch weighed only 1,500 kilograms and did not cause serious harm to the enemy. Xiejin Kuan continued his aggressive attacks as if firing from a machine gun. The guy was lucky that his opponent was slow. If he were faster, he wouldn't have had a chance. To defeat such a strong enemy, Ling Xiao had to make every effort. The situation became increasingly tense. Ling Xiao had to determine his limit, otherwise sooner or later fatigue would lead to defeat. The hero had a clear advantage in speed, which allowed him to attack successfully, and under the blows he retreated several steps. Blood flowed from the enemy's nose and a wide smile appeared on his face, and he had not tasted his blood for a long time. My feelings went through the roof when he called the guy an amazing fighter, and this was the first time in a long time that he met a strong opponent. Even after missing 2 blows weighing 1,500 kilograms, the enemy began to bleed from the nose, and apparently his physical limit was about 1,700 kilograms. The enemy was exceptionally strong, and the guy's use of gloves caused his hands to go numb. In gratitude for the exciting duel, Xiejin Kuan decided to strike with a powerful blow, and despite his 3rd level, he was different from the standard Quan Kuren leaders who usually possessed the 4th stage. Ling Xiao suddenly realized that his opponent was not just a rival, and despite the 3rd level, his attacks were unusually powerful. Xiejin Kuan was determined to end the fight right then, and thereby lunging towards his opponent. A moment later, an amazingly powerful blow followed, and it seemed as if the man had put all his available strength into it. The result was an explosion that destroyed part of the surrounding room, and this was the price for such an intense battle. After the battle, he threatens to hang the hero's body on the highest bridge in the city, and despite the difficulties, he manages to defeat his opponent. However, suddenly the smoke left behind by the explosion cleared, revealing a stream of bright blue light. The enemy barely had time to dodge the attack, and on the verge of death, he survived miraculously. Xiejin Kuan realized that this was a magical weapon, and he had never seen such power before. Ling Xiao suddenly appeared from the smoke with a weapon in his hands, and in a short time, he mastered its use. The blonde girl appeared, awakened by the noise, and seeing the danger, she tried to hide under the blanket, and the hero tried to calm her down. Realizing that the situation was dangerous, the girl hid, and the hero assured her that everything would be fine. Despite the strength and cruelty of his opponent, Ling Xiao believed that he could cope with him. He continued to attack, pursuing the escapee, and his opponent was unlucky to collide with the former emperor. Xiejin Kuan realized that he was unable to win, and the enemy's weapons were too powerful. The hero was chasing him, and it seemed that the opponent did not know how to run away correctly, and it was easy to catch up with him. He will not escape unpunished, and he will have to repair the damage caused by his blow. This was the perfect moment to test the second form of his magical weapon. The guy was so fast that at some point he was in front, and Xiejin Kuan's face expressed surprise. But the man was determined not to give up, and he warned that this little thing had not yet won, and today the hero would die by his hand. Ling Xiao knew that his opponent was backed into a corner and did not know what to do, and now all he could do was make empty threats. The next moment, the hero's blade was just a few millimeters from the man's throat. Their confrontation ended. Xiejin Kuan warned that if the guy killed him right now, he would still be imprisoned for murder. Ling Xiao understood this very well, and if he killed this man now, he would not be able to enter the university. The last thing he wanted in this life was to become trash like his current rival. Not only the police played a key role, and in fact Xiejin Kuan, one of the leaders of Quan Kuan, was subject to possible retaliation from the top leadership if he died. The leader of their organization was not just strong, he possessed terrifying power, becoming the best fighter in the city that no one could rival. The guy thought for a moment, and at that moment the man took the chance, persuading him to urgently remove the weapon and free him, warning that soon there would be no trace even of his corpse. However, the hero declares that he does not know the feeling of fear, and, unfortunately for his enemy, he will not have a chance to contact his accomplices. In the end, Xiejin Kuan survives, and Ling Xiao only scares him with her blow, and the death of this bandit was unnecessary. When asked to recover, the guy emphasizes that he is not going to kill, and it would be much better if he helped reunite the two brothers. The man immediately realized the direction in which events were going, and soon realized the situation he was in, and half an hour later they were already at the police station. As a result, both brothers ended up in the same cell, where they had enough time to talk. Suddenly, the older brother rushed forward and grabbed the younger brother by the shirt, wondering who this high school student was who almost took his life. Meanwhile, Hua Yin once again expresses her gratitude to the guy, since in such a short time he helped detain 2 of the city's main criminals. The captain notes that Ling Xiao can receive the reward at any time, but the hero prefers that the police help him tomorrow night. With pleasure, Hua Yin agrees and only clarifies where they should go, and Ling Xiao assures that he will call them, and if successful, they can count on a promotion. The captain had no reason not to trust the guy, but he was alarmed by the words about the promotion, and it implied that they were going to come into conflict with an entire gang tomorrow night. The Quan Kuan clan was not only powerful, but also extremely mysterious. How is this guy connected to such a dangerous organization? That day was June 17th. It was on this day in his past life that Xiuqing's family experienced a great tragedy. Xiuqing went to the same university as her boyfriend, and over time they became close, but due to social differences, they were hesitant to take their relationship to the next level. As a result, in order to protect the hero, his beloved died, and in this life he would never allow such a tragedy to happen again. The next day, all the newspaper headlines reported that one of the leaders of a large organization had been detained, and that a schoolboy had taken part in this arrest. The highest ranks of the Kurin Zhao clan quickly learned about this event, and they were deeply upset by this news. The clan leader was furious that one of his most loyal subordinates had foolishly allowed himself to be caught, but was even more annoyed that a schoolboy was behind it. The boss's companion suggested changing plans for today, but the leader replied that this was not necessary and they would take care of their man first, and then they had more significant things planned for today. After that, the head of the clan used some mysterious power and grabbed his assistant by the throat, and he was annoyed when someone got in the way. The secretary apologized, and in response, the boss spared him, but only because he had too much to do to waste time on this incident. The frightened assistant fell to the ground and held his neck, and it was clear from his face that he was terrified and short of air. The bandit leader had to defeat another powerful man today who was leading Xiu's group in order to increase his reputation, and he had to decide to kill him. Ling Xiao returned home and immediately called his brother, warning him not to return to the family home anytime soon as it was too dangerous. Besides, if nothing changed, Xiuqing intended to invite him to her birthday party, and she wanted to apologize and get to know him better. Suddenly, his phone received a call from an unknown number, and this was strange, considering that his number was known only to those closest to him. The hero picked up the phone, and a voice from the other end asked if he was looking for a house to rent. Apparently, his number accidentally ended up in some online store, and he hung up, but after a few seconds his phone started ringing again. The guy was irritated by the impudence and answered the phone, saying that he did not need the house, since he was too poor to rent anything, and asked not to bother him anymore. It turns out that it was Xiuqing, and she apologized, not expecting that her call would anger him so much. Xiuqing tells him about the party she is throwing tonight and invites him. Ling Xiao agrees and promises to be on time, but feels that the girl wants to tell him something else. It turns out that his beloved is asking him for an important favor and is clearly very worried. The party is fancy and her dad has set her up on a blind date with a very rich guy, but she doesn't like him at all. The girl asks the guy to help her because she is afraid that if she is not decisive enough, she will live her whole life unhappy. The thought is spinning in Xiuqing's head that she does not want to spend her life with an unloved person. Eventually, Xiuqing plucks up courage and asks the hero to come to the celebration and pretend to be her boyfriend. The guy is a little surprised by such a request, and the first thing he thought about was her difficult relationship with the fans of her friend from the secret club, who would not accept that she has a boyfriend. Xiuqing assures her that this is just one evening, and if everything goes well, he is ready to reward her generously, and he admits that he has practically no male friends. In fact, the hero exaggerated his price, and now he feels very happy, and any man could only dream of this. The girl is worried in ignorance. Her only desire is to hear the approval of her friend in response to her request. After a few seconds, Ling Xiao agrees to help and promises that tomorrow night he will be completely her man, and she is embarrassed by such words. Right at that moment, her sister sneaks up behind her and asks why she took so long. Xiaoqing was overwhelmed with emotions, and she screamed in surprise, which made Xiaoqian scared and asked if everything was okay with her sister, because she was all red. The brunette answers that everything is fine with her and leaves, and the blonde remembers that she has already noticed this behavior before, but cannot remember where. Suddenly she realizes that she saw the same behavior in her sister when she first fell in love with a boy from high school. It was evening outside, and the hero stood in the bathroom, preparing for what he did not expect, and the party turned out to be a blind date, and the leader of the group could make his move at any moment. His position was far from favorable, his power level remained low, and in previous battles his victories depended mainly on the use of weapons. The martial arts training system is divided into two parts, and the first one, known as Qi, has 10 stages, and when one reaches the 10th stage, he moves to a new level, but this is only the beginning of his journey. Access to the next level is not available to everyone, since only after mastering certain skills does a person become immortal. That is why, to achieve immortality, it is necessary to possess not only magic and strength, but also mastery in martial arts. After several hours of persistent meditation, the guy finally achieved results, feeling the power developing inside him. He didn't expect that after just one divine resolution session, he would go through 3 stages, and apparently, in this life, his cultivation path would become much easier. Unfortunately, Ling Xiao can only use divine resolution once every 15 days, but by building such a powerful foundation, he can become much stronger. The hero wears that in the near future he will definitely return to the world of immortals. The scene moves to another restaurant where Xiaoqing's birthday was supposed to be held, and the guy was already on his way to the meeting place. The girl's parents stood at the entrance to the establishment, welcoming all the guests who came to celebrate their daughter's birthday. One of the guests was chosen by Xiaoqing's father for a blind date, and the guy says that he is very busy and is glad that they finally met, and his name was Xiaoqiu. The mother looked very depressed, and her face clearly expressed her reluctance to see her daughter spend her life with someone she did not love. The birthday girl was still upstairs waiting for her lover, feeling uneasy about his delay. Suddenly, someone knocked on her room, inviting her to come down and greet the guests who had arrived for her birthday. Without waiting for an answer, the 2 men entered the room, and the father told Xiaoqiu to talk to the girl, and when the banquet began, they would invite them to join. It was clear from the guy's face that he accepted the offer with pleasure, and his gaze seemed a little crazy, causing a feeling of anxiety. Approaching the girl, the guy began to compliment her, and the blonde noted that her skin was light and shining, like the moon, and she looked like a fairy. Then the guy extended his hand and invited her to touch his skin, and at that moment his face became even more frightening. But the birthday girl refused, and raising her tone, she said that he was a pervert and had no right to touch her, because this was her home, and he should behave respectfully. Xiaoqiu agreed that this is her home, but only for now, and she herself understands what will happen next, because her father made his choice. After that, he calmly sat down on the girl's bed, as if he were at home, and said that if she was obedient, he might allow her to stay. Xiaoqing was extremely annoyed by such statements, and the birthday girl could not understand what absurd words this short-sighted person was saying, and ordered him to immediately leave her bed. The guy was stunned by such an answer, and this sissy had been accustomed to special treatment since childhood, because he came from an influential family. The offended guest said that the girl was too arrogant, and in any case she would have to obey him. He promised to get whatever he wanted. Xiaoqiu decides that one day he will take revenge on her and destroy her, but now he is not ready for this, and his face showed that he was deeply offended. The birthday girl stood in the middle of the room, thinking about the possible plans of his family, which had enormous influence. Meanwhile, in the forest, next to the mansion where the banquet was being held, the bandit leader stood with his henchmen, and he noticed that a luxurious life could be extremely boring. The villain threw his binoculars into the secretary's hands, and said with a smile that, unfortunately, soon only ruins would remain here. The invited guests belonged to high society, and even the cheapest cars here cost millions, which was expected considering that the party was being hosted by one of the 5 strongest families. The guards stood surprised at the entrance gate to see a strange guest who arrived on a broken bicycle, and he was probably just passing by. Ling Xiao was thinking about why all the rich people build their mansions on the hills, and getting here was not easy, but luckily his neighbor lent him her bicycle. To the surprise of the guards, the guy was still planning to join the party, and besides, he took up an entire parking space with his bicycle. He and his brother were barely making ends meet, so the hero did not have expensive clothes for such an occasion, and he hoped that Xiao Qing would not feel ashamed of him. The guards told Ling Xiao that he was not allowed to be here, and if he came to collect bottles, he should wait until the party was over, and then he would be allowed into the backyard. The guy replied that he was not an ordinary garbage collector and asked to let him through, because the birthday girl herself had invited him. However, the guards only laughed loudly, and they did not believe that such a loser could be invited to her birthday by Xiao Qing. One of them noticed that the hero's clothes cost no more than their uniform, and in his opinion, the guy was trying to get inside to try the expensive food. But then the birthday girl herself came out and invited Ling Xiao to her place with a smile, and she was glad that he came after all. She took his hand and led him inside, and from the outside they looked like a beautiful couple. The guards were shocked by what they saw, and the girl really was friends with him and did not hesitate to hold his hand. Inside, the guests became interested in Ling Xiao and wanted to know more about him, but Ling Xiao politely apologized and said that this is where he came to drink wine with the birthday girl. When Xiao Qing asked him what kind of wine he was talking about, pointing out his young age, the guy replied that it was just a joke. At this time, on stage, her father gave a speech, thanked everyone who came to his daughter's celebration, and then announced that today the birthday girl would be engaged to Xiao Chu. To confirm the deal, the man turned to the guy's father, inviting them to shake hands. However, Ling Xiao and Xiao Qing suddenly appeared in the main hall holding hands, causing shock to everyone present. The head of the family asked his daughter why she was holding this stranger's hand and who he was. The girl told the guy that there was no need to say anything, because everyone around them would understand, and he agreed and noticed that they paid special attention to him. Immediately after their appearance, whispers began between the guests, who were surprised at Ling Xiao's courage, and after all, his outfit and 200 yuan were not worth this attention, and the party promised to be eventful. The only one whose reaction was different was Xiao Qian, who admired her sister for deciding to go against her father's wishes right in front of everyone. At this moment, Zhao's father and son were furious, and it seemed that they were being betrayed. How could they dare to hold hands, and everything had already been decided? The hero showed self-confidence, as if he liked such attention, and he began to greet everyone and thank them for coming to this holiday. It turned out that the guy had a pleasant charm. A wide smile and an aristocratic demeanor created an impression, despite his cheap clothes. Soon the father of the birthday girl approached the couple. Obvious anger was reflected on his face, and it seemed that the party might be ruined. The girl's sister continued to admire this act, and now the hero appeared before her in a completely different light. The father approached them, expressing his displeasure, and asked Ling Xiao who he was, and the man was unaware of his daughter's boyfriend and suggested that he looked for a job if he needed money. The hero explained that he was not dating Ling Xiao for money and suggested that the father check this with his own daughter. The man continued to convince his daughter that the groom she had chosen was talented and warned against possible mistakes. The girl, realizing that her friend has created the perfect moment, decides to take advantage of it, loudly declaring that she is in love with him. At this moment, all the guests admired the girl's courage, seeing true love, even in confrontation with her own father. But the head of the family, furious after such words, tries to hit her, remembering how much he did for her. He waved his hand, preparing to strike, but Xiao Qing, having foreseen this, was ready to take the blow from her father. However, the guy grabbed the man's hand and remarked that there is no point in physical strength, and if he has any problems, they can solve them with courage, and if he is looking for a fight, then why not fight him personally? After such a performance, all the guests lost the desire to pronounce words, as if they were in a scene from a film, and the hero himself was truly impressive. The father was so angry that he was ready to punish anyone who came to his hand, and he was ready to fight with anyone who dared to offend his daughter. At the last moment, Zhang Yi intervened, noting that if they truly loved each other, then there was no point in being angry, and it was better to just accept it. The head of the family realized that the destruction of an already concluded deal would bring shame to the entire family, and he began to apologize to his partner. It was clear from the expression on his face that all his statements sounded insincere, but he continued to play the role and stated that he did not need an apology. He suddenly made a gesture with his left hand, and a moment later, a crowd of armed mercenaries appeared out of nowhere. Xiao Chu in turn ordered the soldiers to arrest all of the Xiu family members as well as Ling Xiao, and apparently he had important conversations with them. A few minutes later, the entire banquet turned into a real hell. No one could understand what was happening, and everyone tried to leave the scene as quickly as possible. The father was no less shocked than anyone else, and it never occurred to him that his partner was capable of such an act. Having come to his senses a little, he shouted at the top of his lungs, accusing that guy and asking him what he was doing here. Xiao answered him that he did not like Xiu Shunwan, and they grew old together, but it seems to him that the owner of the house became one of the richest people in the country not entirely deservedly. In addition, he planned to destroy his business, but now it was more important for him to take care of his safety and the safety of his family. At this time, the fleeing guests discovered that the main entrance doors were locked, and they urgently needed to look for an emergency exit. But Ling Xiao warned those present not to leave, because the criminals were probably not stupid enough to leave the emergency exit uncovered. Some people were so scared that they didn't want to listen to the hero, and they couldn't just sit and wait, and if they had even a 1% chance of being saved, they were willing to take the risk. While running away and looking for an emergency exit, they advised everyone to do the same, claiming that if they listened to this guy, they would die right here. There was a loud scream all around, and it was impossible to call the police, since the attackers were experienced and blocked all communications. Xiu Qing did not expect that this could happen, and she asked the hero to leave quickly, because this does not concern him, but Ling Xiao had already promised to help her, and he cannot just run away. Xiao Chu, with a surprising look, told his father that he was bored and wanted to catch this family as soon as possible, and the man told him that it would all be over soon. He was interested in young girls and ordered his thugs to take them all to the top floor. The master of the house was not going to give up easily, and he fought hand-to-hand against the armed mercenaries, and he did well. Standing in front of everyone, he promised the guests of his house that while he was alive, no one would dare to touch them, and this man turned out to be very brave. His former partner was counting on the fact that his only ally in this situation was too young to match the normal chi power. The villain wanted to quickly resolve all the issues and takes a pistol out of his pocket. In the next moment, all the attackers pointed their weapons towards one person, Mr. Su, who was cornered. When Ling Xiao saw this situation, he realized that he did not have time to stand behind. It was time for a fight. He took out his special weapon and brought it to Xiao Chu's throat, and the man was scared to death. His face turned pale and his knees trembled. But before the guy could do anything, Xiu Qian was faster, and she snuck up behind him and used her whip to grab the blonde. The rope was wrapped around his neck, and the girl warned that if he did not order his killers to stop, she would kill him. The man told Xiu Qian that she was brave for going against him and he could kill her in many ways, but the girl warned that if she died, she would take his son with her. The villain had no other choice and reluctantly ordered everyone to lay down their arms, and the fear of losing his descendants still won. All the girls around her admired Xiu Qian, and in their eyes she was cool, and their love for her did not diminish even despite her female gender. Ling Xiao knew that the Xiao family was ready for this, otherwise the man would not have been given up so easily, and he probably had a backup plan. Suddenly, someone appeared on the roof, and apparently it was a backup plan, and Mr. Zhao's expression instantly changed to a smirk. The hero shouted to Xiao Qian to leave there immediately, and now she was in great danger. But little sister didn't understand what he was talking about, and having an advantage here and now was more important to them than trying to escape and losing their advantage. A second later, someone jumped from the roof, accompanied by a strong explosion, and this force was visible to the naked eye. Unfortunately, the girl received a serious blow and lay unconscious, and the villain stood on her and said that it seemed like he accidentally stepped on someone. Xiao Chu turned pale with fear again and screamed loudly, and this fool turned out to be completely unharmed. The father and sister immediately ran to the aid of the victim, but the guy ordered them to stop, since the enemy turned out to be extremely strong, and they needed to carefully consider their actions. But his words fell on deaf ears, and the two rushed to the attack, seeking revenge on the enemy for what he had done to their relative. However, the enemy turned out to be impregnable, easily parrying both blows and declaring that no one in this room could compare with him. Xiao Shunwan and Xiao Qing were shocked by what happened, and they had never seen such power before, and neither of them could move. Xiao Chu and his father stood aside, explaining that this was Zhao Quan, the leader of the Kuan faction, considered the strongest fighter in the city. Even the rest of the mercenaries were shocked by the information they heard, and legends circulated around this man, claiming that he was capable of killing 100 people with one blow. Ling Xiao realized that this was exactly the person he should have stumbled upon, because the guy put one of his charges in prison. Zhang Yi ordered the villain to immediately kill anyone who continued to resist, and the party had to end as soon as possible. At first, the head of the clan planned to break the arms and legs of his rivals so that they would suffer longer, and father and daughter thought that this was the end. However, suddenly a powerful punch flew across Zhao Kuang's face, and the attack was very fast, and even such a skilled fighter could not resist it. This was immediately followed by a strong kick. It was a hero who had arrived just in time, and if he had delayed even a second, the situation would have become much worse. The hero told the villain that anyone who dared touch his girlfriend would face him personally. Both blows were of terrifying power, and even a fighter who was considered invincible was seriously injured. Xiao Qing and her father were shocked by what they saw, and no one present in this house could imagine that this student had such power. Immediately after this, Ling Xiao turned his gaze to Xiao Chu and his father, and they were the next in line who he really wanted to put in their place. The two also couldn't believe their eyes, and he was a student, but how could his strength be at such a high level? The guy made a deft and quick leap in the direction of his enemies, and at the same moment the Xiao family guards rushed to protect their boss. But it was too late, there was no saving him, because the hero concentrated on his attack, and this blow could not be stopped. Out of nowhere, a large fist of pure energy appeared, so dense that it could easily stop the guy's movement completely. Ling Xiao realized that Zhao Kuang also possessed Kong Qi, and this was a complete surprise. Only a few people out of 1,000,000 had reached this level of power. The enemy rose to his feet. There were no traces of the hero's blows on his face, and he asked his name, because no one had beaten him like that for a long time. The hero replied that the villain knew his name very well. He was the student who sent his charges straight to prison. Zhang Yi and all his thugs realized who he was talking about, and he was a local celebrity, and the news was all over the newspapers. At this moment, Xiao Shunwan began to understand what his daughter noticed in this man, and it seemed that the father became more lenient. The main enemy tensed up after Ling Zhao's words, and veins appeared on his forehead with anger, and he was determined to solve all his problems that evening. After this, Zhao Quan orders the bandits not to shoot the hero, since he wants to deal with him personally, and this was a matter of honor. The opponents clashed in a duel. Their blows were approximately equal in strength, and each of them promised that today he would finish off his enemy. Due to the fact that both fighters were incredibly strong, their fight was accompanied by strong explosions of energy, and the entire space around them seemed to be on fire. The owner of the house asked his daughter to take advantage of the situation and get out of here quickly, and she had a chance to call the police, and she also had to help her sister. Xiao Qing did not want to leave her father alone, and she was very worried about him. And although they had not gotten along lately, the girl had always loved him very much. The man replied that he refused to leave the guy alone, and he owed him, and even if he had to die here, he would do it like a man. But the girl does not agree to leave, and it was she who dragged her friend into this trouble, and now she has to help him escape. She begs her father to take Xiao Qian and leave with her, and she herself decides to stay in the house and fight with Ling Xiao side by side. Hearing this puts the father in a difficult position, and he is proud of his daughter, but cannot afford to leave her in such danger. Suddenly, the conversation is interrupted by a woman's scream, and Zhang Yi roughly grabs her by the hair and drags her closer to him. It turns out that the villain took the birthday girl's mother hostage, trying to turn the situation in his favor. Her husband and daughter were terrified for her, and they thought that she was hiding somewhere and was not in danger. She is ready to make a sacrifice, screaming at the man to take her daughters and leave as quickly as possible. After these words, the villain forcefully kicks her in the stomach, and apparently he did not like this activity and wants to shut her up. The head of the Xiao family turns to Xiao Qing and says that she may not care about her own fate, but what about the others? Seeing what happened, the girl reacts sharply, rushing towards the one who offended her mother, and at that time Xiao Shunwen turns to her former partner with a request to think about it and stop showing aggression. The villain deliberately provokes the birthday girl into emotions, and when she succumbs to his tricks, he instantly orders his bodyguard to open fire. Shots are heard, and at that moment Xiao Qing realizes that she made a serious mistake by succumbing to the influence of emotions. At this time, a fierce fight is taking place, and because of this, the hero cannot observe what is happening to his beloved. Hearing the shots, the guy begins to worry and loses attention, missing a powerful blow. Zhao Kuang is too strong for anyone to distract him during a fight, and this is a sign of arrogance. Ling Xiao realizes that even a brief distraction can have deadly consequences in a tense battle. The hero realizes that he cannot fight indefinitely and decides to take advantage by retrieving his brother's gloves. The stakes become higher when the villain notices his rival is preparing to use a weapon and increases his energy to the limit. As soon as the guy attacks, the bandit feels incredible power, and he realizes that this time the guy is using his full power. If he did not dodge this blow, then death might be inevitable, and yet this person was not one of those who could be easily eliminated. Zhao Quan argued that despite the hero's strength, no one is able to jump over his head, and then he blocks the attack. But Ling Xiao had no intention of stopping, and he still had a lot of untapped energy, and this was just the beginning. His opponent was shocked, believing that this was the guy's ultimate ability, and it never occurred to him that an ordinary student could be so powerful. The opponent jumped several meters, trying to avoid the blow, and at this moment a lightning discharge consisting entirely of chi energy appears between the opponents. A moment later, Ling Xiao uses his gauntlet to absorb all of this energy and forcefully punches his opponent in the face. This attack is successful. Zhao Quan is completely paralyzed by the discharge of energy, and he is no longer able to fight and apparently lost the confrontation. A few moments later, the villain flies back and falls at the other end of the room. Everyone in the room couldn't believe their eyes, and the one everyone considered to be a living legend and the most powerful fighter in the city was defeated. Zhang Yi realized that he was in serious trouble, and even the strongest mercenary warrior he had recruited for his plan had lost, and now he needed to somehow get out of this situation. The criminal began to bleed from his mouth, and for a long time he could not get up from the floor, and yet he maintained that his will was still strong, and the fight must continue. At this time, Ling Xiao shouts, warning that this person must under no circumstances be allowed to get back on his feet. The hero resorts to special spells, which are several energy threads intertwined into a network. With his opponent paralyzed, the young man draws his special blade and prepares to finish him off once and for all, perhaps never having the chance again. But suddenly he notices that his lover is injured and lying on the floor, and Ling Xiao instantly changes his thoughts. First of all, he needs to find out who dared to harm his girlfriend, and whoever did it must be punished immediately. The bandits decide to take advantage of the moment and fire their guns at the same time, hoping to kill Ling Xiao once and for all. But the hero easily deflects every bullet shot, using his brother's gloves. This weapon turns out to be really effective. The villains are wondering whether the person is really standing in front of them. Why not a single bullet could hit him? And is this possible? The guy believes that those who dared to touch Xiao Qing are not worthy of asking him questions, and now they will feel the full consequences. Xiao Chu and his father immediately began begging for mercy and making desperate attempts to escape from the mansion. But Ling Xiao did not want to hear a word about mercy, and any manifestation of violence must be punished. This is an immutable law of nature. Energy threads appeared in the air again, enveloping the villain and causing him serious damage. Seeing what happened to his father, the blonde began to sob like a small child and begged to be kept alive. The mercenaries all fell to their knees as one and began to make excuses, saying that they were hired for only money, and they did not even know what their mission would be. Soon Xiao Chu joined them, falling to his knees, and the brat burst into tears even more and claimed that he had nothing to do with this situation, and the whole plan from beginning to end belonged to his father. However, the hero was not going to tolerate this chatter for a second longer, and there was no point in playing the fool in front of him, and the game was already over. Once again the guy carries out his special attack, making everyone who dares to harm his loved one feel pain. Meanwhile, the police were already heading to the scene, where they had been called in advance. When the police team led by Hua Yin arrived at the scene, they couldn't believe their eyes. Surprisingly, the teenager was able to eliminate the threat on his own, defeating all the criminals and remaining invulnerable. Those who committed the crimes will inevitably face punishment by spending the next years behind bars. After the incident ended, the head of the Xiao family expressed his sincere gratitude to Ling Xiao for saving the lives of his loved ones. Now Ling Xiao became the benefactor of their family, ready to provide the guy with anything he wanted, and there was no need to be embarrassed and ask for anything. The hero noted that he understands and is ready to make a choice, and among all the riches of the world, he will, in any case, choose Xiao Qing. Despite her injuries, the girl clearly heard these words, and they deeply touched her, causing her to blush with embarrassment. Her mother noticed that modern youth are very romantic, which is good, considering that her husband has not shown such qualities for a long time. The birthday girl asked the guy what he was talking about, because they met only a couple of days ago, and was he really ready for such a quick and serious relationship? The family, hearing this, were surprised, thinking that the guy and girl had known each other for a long time and were dating. The father asked his daughter what this meant. Hadn't they been a couple for a long time, and what was happening? At that moment, the girl realized that she had burned herself out, and all these events shocked her greatly, and she completely forgot about her preconceived plan. Ling Xiao decided to confess everything on his own, stating that he is not really her boyfriend, but his desire is for the girl to make her own decisions. Today she turned 18 years old, and her parents should have allowed her to manage her life the way she wanted. At this moment, Ling Xiao realized what the hero really meant, and it sounded quite romantic, and she would want to live her life next to such a person. These words also touched the girl's parents. They were surprised at how little time they devoted to her and how little they knew about her dreams. The father began to blame himself for everything that happened, because the idea of the engagement was his, and if not for him, none of this would have happened. Having thought everything over well, the head of the family promised to fulfill the wish of his new family friend, and from now on his daughter can independently decide her life. From this day on, he will not interfere in her affairs, and she will be able to do whatever she wants, following her heart. Ling Xiao was incredibly happy to hear these words from his dad, and tears of joy appeared in his eyes, and he thanked the girl's parents. Soon, doctors arrived and headed to the house to help all those injured from the bandit attack. Xiao Qian was quickly placed on a stretcher and sent straight to the hospital, and now the girl has every chance of recovery. The girl's parents were grateful that their daughter had such a devoted friend, and this guy undoubtedly promises great success. It seems that the girl's father is not quite ready to let his daughter go free, and he still advises her not to let such an amazing person go. There was silence as all the ambulances left the scene, and the situation was finally resolved. Zhao Kuang had his mission to complete tonight, but he was unlucky enough to meet a hero. What attracted Ling Xiao most about Divine Resolution was the opportunity to learn martial arts from other fighters, and in his previous life, he had mastered more than 10,000 styles. The guy was absorbed in his thoughts when the police captain approached him and once again expressed gratitude for the help provided. Huayan invited him to join the police, but the hero replied that, unfortunately, he was not qualified enough for such a responsible occupation. An exception was made for Ling Xiao, who could become a police officer without recommendations, because he had already demonstrated his devotion to the law. In fact, the stronger a person is, the easier it is for him to retreat from the right path, and Zhao Kuang was a prime example of this. Only at that moment did the hero realize that the police knew about his unusual abilities, about his possession of at least the 3rd level of qi. Ling Xiao replies that he needs to hurry home, but if the opportunity arises in the future, he will definitely become a police officer. The captain takes out a pack of cigarettes and lights one of them, and despite the help provided by this guy, for the first time he feels something strange from him. At the moment, this student was a much greater danger than when he led the villains to the police the first time. The hero hurries to the Ling family residence, where his friend Li Yang is already waiting for him, and it seems that he was unusually happy to meet Ling Xiao again. His older brother says that the police have already called, saying that he dealt with a huge gang of criminals alone. The guy says that he didn't do anything special because he previously promised that no one would dare to offend those who were dear to him, and this is just the beginning. His brother's cure awaits him ahead. Ling Xian tells his younger brother that he should not worry about him so much, because what is important to him is that he has a younger brother. But the hero announces that the medicine may be ready tomorrow, and also returns the gloves, which he may soon need again. In addition, he gives his magic blade to his faithful friend, and Li Yang was amazed and happy at the same time, because he had never seen such a thing before. This knife was not just a weapon of the 2nd stage. It contained 2 elements, and now completely belonged to the hero. However, it seemed that the comrade was not very skilled in handling such a weapon, and immediately after he picked it up, an uncontrollable streak of energy appeared in the room. Ling Xiao was too tired that day, and it was already very late, and the guy said goodbye to everyone and went to his room to rest. He gave his weapon to a friend because it was no longer needed, and now the hero had a new upgrade. Now he could freely use Zhao Kuang's abilities, and in the future he would definitely shine at the very top of the world. Instead of resting, Ling Xiao sat down to meditate again, not wanting to just waste his precious time. He really wanted to heal his brother's legs, and to do this, he needed to break through to the 4th stage as soon as possible. The guy did not expect that the Divine Resolution would help him so much in increasing his own strength, and the special technique accelerated his cultivation 3 times. He could reach the required level of power very soon, and in this life his abilities improved much faster. But suddenly something strange happens. Blood starts flowing from Ling Xiao's mouth and nose, and he cannot understand what is happening to his body. I had to stop trying to meditate. It seems that such rapid growth affected his physical condition too much. Ling Xiao thought about the reasons for this, and it was likely that his body could not withstand such a rapid accelerated increase in strength. Despite all his strength, he could not break some laws of the universe that even he could not control. Continuing attempts at the same pace threatened failure and even death instead of achieving the set goals. As the hero wiped away the blood, Ling Xian entered the room and invited his younger brother to try the snacks he had bought. Seeing the guy with the napkins, the older brother immediately came to the assumption that comes to mind for many in similar situations. Ling Xiao instantly caught the sly expression on his elder brother's face and realized exactly what he was thinking when he saw such a picture. At the same moment, the hero began to make excuses, claiming that the situation was not at all as Ling Xian presented it. The next day at their school, the teacher addressed their class, informing them that the sisters had passed the exam with high marks. However, their awkward classmates will now have to make every effort to get into a prestigious university. Martial arts universities are classified into 5 categories from D to S, and for students from a small town, getting into a Class A university is considered great luck. There were many unqualified people among his classmates, and most of them would not be able to get into universities above B rank. When it was Ling Zhao's turn, his teacher was amazed. His grades were beyond praise. The whole class was in shock, and how could this guy, who seemed to just sleep through all of his classes, have such high scores in all his subjects? As a result, the hero received a grade of S, and with this result it was easy for him to enter an S-rank university or any other university of his choice. Immediately after the excellent student collected his documents, everyone in the class began to whisper about how incredible it was to have such a fighter in his class. In fact, Ling Xiao was holding back his strength to get a minus grade, and if he used his full potential, it would raise too many questions. Xiao Er, a petite and charming girl with white hair, also received excellent marks in humanities. This result amazed the students no less, and this student could not even lift 20 kilograms on the strength measuring scale. In a past life, the hero and this girl never crossed paths, but in this world they exchanged a few words, the first time when he broke through the wall in her house, and the second time when he asked her for a bicycle. The guy was surprised at how well she coped with the humanities exam, while he himself could barely do it. Walking past his desk, a classmate accidentally touched his folder with documents, and it fell to the floor. This confused the girl, and she hurried to pick up the folder, and Ling Xiao also bent down to help. Everyone tried to quickly pick up the papers, and classmates accidentally bumped their foreheads, bending down at the same time. The hero asked her if everything was okay, and because of this the girl became even more embarrassed. Her cheeks glowed bright red. The classmate said that she was fine and hurried back to her desk, and it turned out that she was very shy. When the guy returned home, it dawned on him to show off his high score to his elder, and Ling Xian noticed that his brother was very happy and asked what was the matter. Li Jiao took out a leaf and praised Ling Xiao. The A grade was an excellent result, and the hero was surprised because he received a higher grade. The brother noticed that instead of a photograph of a guy, there was a blonde girl pasted onto the documents. He asked why Xiao Er's name was on his exam paper, and the guy realized that he and his classmate had mixed up their documents. Ling Xiao ran to her house to rectify the situation, and they needed these documents very soon. Before entering, he wondered why the front door was so dirty, but decided it was none of his business and knocked on the door. No one answered, so the guy decided to open the door himself, announcing that he was a neighbor and was trying to enter. The front door was not locked, and everything inside was old, like the furniture and renovations, and this place looked strange, especially for a girl. Ling Xiao continued to look for his documents while discussing what happened with his classmate. Suddenly, he noticed that the girl was lying motionless on the cold floor, and it looked strange and creepy. The guy was scared and tried to understand what happened to her friend, and she might need medical help. Fortunately, it turned out that nothing serious happened to the classmate, and for some reason she was lying on the floor and was very exhausted. The lady of the house quietly expressed her desire to eat, and it was unclear whether she was acting strangely or whether she really did not have money for food. Hearing the words about food, Ling Xiao hurried into the house to cook something quick. As soon as Xiao Er saw the food being prepared, she quickly picked up her chopsticks and started eating her dinner, looking as happy as a little child. The guy advises her not to rush, emphasizing that the food will not go anywhere, and if his older brother was not busy, he would ask him to cook something, because he was a real professional. For her, the offered treat was more than enough, and her words sounded deep gratitude, and she claimed that she had never tasted anything tastier in her life. After asking when she last ate, the guy learned that 3 whole days had passed since her last meal, which led to her passing out. Ling Xiao admires her willpower, but doesn't quite understand why she has to suffer so much, and thinness is good, but it's too much to mock yourself. However, the girl did not starve for the sake of losing weight, and due to preparation for exams, she was not able to work part-time, and she had no other money. Hearing this, the hero asked her to eat as much as she needed and found out where her parents were, and it turned out that they had died and she had been living alone for a long time. The guy apologized for his question, not suggesting that this was the case. Shower was fine and not upset, and the guy seemed like a good person to her, and she promised to return his certificate after dinner. Her fate was reminiscent of Ling Xiao's, and the hero is surprised how so many people are around, but no one paid attention to the destroyed building. After dinner, the girl thanked the guy again and went to her room to return his certificate. Ling Xiao notices that her movements look unnatural, as if something is interfering with normal movement. He remembers that in class, someone mentioned that Xiao Air couldn't even lift 20 kilograms on the machine. She was hardworking and kind to others, and the guy really wants to help her in whatever way he can. He decides to approach her directly and find out more, and it seems that she is hiding something. The guy decides to find out more about her by approaching her directly, and it seems to him that she is definitely hiding something. The girl felt embarrassed and said that she could return the certificate to him herself, and he did not have to come to her house. The hero asks why she couldn't lift even 20 kilograms, considering that even ordinary people can easily handle a weight of 40 kilograms. A classmate is surprised by the question and claims that she is not hiding anything, but her face expresses confusion. Suddenly, a glow appears on the girl's chest, and Ling Xiao instantly notices it, and it is obvious that it has something to do with magic. After a few seconds, the glow intensified several times, causing pain to the girl, as if her strength was leaving right before her eyes. At some point, she completely weakened and fell to the floor. Apparently, this artifact was sucking out her vitality, and the guy had to react quickly. He asked Xiao Air what was wrong with her, but she could not answer because she was too weak and her life needed immediate attention. After some time, the glow turned into icy patterns, which, with every second, covered more and more space on the girl's body. She screamed in pain, and the icy cold engulfed her body more and more, reminiscent of some kind of curse. The guy apologized to her and took off her clothes to assess the damage done to her body by this curse. The classmate's condition worsened, her temperature rose, and she began to sweat, and this was the curse of the ice spider. Her strength was only enough to complain about the cold, and the hero finally guessed what technique this curse was, but could not understand how such a secret spell could end up on Xiao Air. She could not remain in this state for long, and she urgently needed to replenish her energy reserves. Ling Xiao was only at the 3rd stage of qi, and if he healed it, he would not be able to protect himself from the consequences. But he had one way, and that was to remove her clothes for a more efficient transfer of energy, and the guy understood that he was crossing the line, and once again apologized to his friend. Everything he was going to do was aimed at saving her, and they had no choice. The guy sat his classmate on the floor, and every minute she became worse and worse, and at this rate she could have died. Ling Xiao immediately began the energy transfer procedure, and it required full concentration and time. They remained in this position for several tens of minutes. For everything to go well, it was necessary to act carefully. As time passed, the blue seal began to gradually weaken, requiring a significant amount of energy to do so. The guy was stronger than he expected, and his skills were impressive, but difficult to control. When the curse stopped working, Xiao Air came to her feelings, and it seemed that she had no memory of what happened during her illness. But tears appeared in her eyes, and she was ashamed of her dirty body, and the poverty was so severe that she did not have enough even for basic needs. The guy looked at her with compassion, and he felt sorry for his friend, and at that moment he wanted to do everything possible to calm her down. He hugged her and told her that she was beautiful no matter what. Small these troubles did not matter in front of her beauty. Xiao Air began to cry even more, thanking her savior, and she had not experienced such kindness from someone for a long time. After everything that happened, her main goal was to take a shower as soon as possible, and she was eager to get rid of the hard day. The question remained unanswered. How could this seal appear on her body, and it is rare that such secret techniques are used on people. Soon, the girl came out of the shower, once again expressing her gratitude, and Ling Xiao's clothes fit her perfectly. The guy was glad that he could cheer her up, and it was a small but important thing for her. He also asked how this seal ended up on her body, but Xiao didn't know how it happened. It was hard to believe, but this thing had been with her since birth, and for 17 years it prevented her from enjoying life. The hero was shocked, and this technique had been stealing her energy her entire life, and he suspected who the culprit might be. A classmate urges him not to worry, and she has gotten used to it over the years and thought everything was fine. In fact, everything was bad, and the guy notices that the attacks are getting worse, and Xiao confirms this. He also needed to know how many days were left until her 18th birthday, and this could influence their decision. Her 18th birthday was a little over a week away, but how could this information help? The problem was that the seal existed for 18 years and exploded after that, and if you didn't get rid of it, there would be no girl left. If this curse was not lifted, she would die, and they had very little time to solve this problem. The friend was scared and asked if Ling Xiao was joking, and there was worry in her eyes. Of course, the hero was not joking, but all was not lost. The curse could be lifted, but it was not so easy. A classmate begs to save them, and she doesn't want to die. She wants to live, go to university, and do other things. Xiao takes a step forward, saying that she wants to change her destiny, but because of the shoes that don't fit, she falls awkwardly forward. Because of this, both find themselves in an awkward situation, falling to the floor, while the girl is only in a shirt. In a moment, both were on the floor. The situation became quite awkward, and both felt embarrassed. At the same moment, Ling Xian entered the room, always on time, and an amazing picture unfolded in front of him. The young people quickly got up from the floor, and the younger brother immediately began to convince the older one that it was all just a misunderstanding. Ling Xiao hurried his friend to get up faster and confirm his words that there was a big misunderstanding. However, Xiao only clung even tighter to the guy, and he didn't quite understand why she was doing this, because they were just friends. He was the first person in her life who cared about her so much, and if he wants, she is ready to become his girlfriend. After a moment, the girl insistently asked Ling Xiao to forget what she had just said, and they were still lying on top of each other. At some point, their eyes met, and they looked at each other with loving eyes. A spark flared up between them. The friend was ready to thank the hero in any way. She wanted to do something good for him. But the hero stopped her, and Xiao thought that she probably didn't like the guy, and she immediately guessed the reason for this behavior. In fact, Ling Xiao believed that girls should respect themselves and not rush at the first person they come across, and if they are meant for each other, fate itself will connect them. The classmate was grateful to him for his selfless help, and he was the best person she had met in her life. The girl hugged him again, and her behavior immediately showed that she had lacked human attention since childhood. During Ling Xiao's time of greatness, fairies and goddesses stood in line to commune with him, and if he had not been so strong, he would not have survived. But Xiao's embrace felt especially warm and soft to him, and he didn't want this moment to end. At one point, the guy started bleeding from his nose, and it looked like he was nervous and needed to calm down a little. When asked by a classmate to help him, he replied that he was fine, he had more important things to do now. The next day, Ling Xiao was going to visit a place where his brother's legs could be healed and the girl's seal could be dealt with. In the morning, they were in the city of Nanyu, from where the guy and the girl were going to go to the mountains in search of the right place. But a problem arose. They needed transport because it was too difficult to climb the mountains on foot. Fortunately, in these places they found an interesting means of transportation, a special riding bull, which they will soon have. This unusual vehicle, a travelox, amazed Xiao, but in the mountains where there are no roads, such a companion was most welcome. After that, the friends set off, and the girl almost fell off the mount several times, but Ling Xiao caught her every time. The road took almost the whole day, and only in the evening they managed to arrive at the right place, and it turned out to be a very old and abandoned village. The hero asked his friend to be quiet, because there were no people here, but there was someone else. After that, he took the girl in his arms, and together they approached the houses, which it felt like no one had been in for 100 years. It was important to remain silent in this place, despite the fact that someone else lived here. Their bull walked forward, and when the animal had walked a few meters, a strange noise was heard from one of the houses. Suddenly, from the window of an abandoned house, something resembling a toad's tongue enlarged several hundred times appeared. This something grabbed their assistant, and Xiao was scared at the sight of it. Ling Xiao walked up at the right moment and grabbed the tentacles using his newly acquired ability. He turned to someone and asked if he wanted to take the bull, without even listening to the request of the one who brought them here. The guy made an effort and pulled this something towards himself, and it turned out that the owner of this strange organ was a living creature. This was a toad man with 5 poisons, the only inhabitant of this godforsaken village, and now it became clear why people do not live here. Having revealed the monster, he had to attack openly, and poison spilled out of his mouth, and fortunately, the hero managed to cover himself and his classmate with a special barrier. It was one of the most powerful poisonous gases, and the girl recently read about it in one of the encyclopedias. Thanks to the protection created in time, even this poison could not harm them, and their visit had only one purpose, and if the Toad Man did not want to get hurt, he should behave prudently. The monster realized that he had no choice, and agreed to listen to the request of the unexpected guests and remove his tongue. The creature asked who they were and why they came, how the guy even knew about this place and what his name was. Ling Xiao replied that it didn't matter how he knew about this place. They were only interested in the path to their sacred lands. The Toad Man was not going to let them through, and who were they anyway, for him to allow them into their sacred home? The guy was persistent, and he quickly approached the creature and declared that he knew all the details about his clan and, in particular, about the many sins of the Toad Man. However, the local villager was not impressed and did not care about his sins, since, as he discussed, no one is sinless. Ling Xiao watched with pleasure as the green man tried to elude him, but this would more likely lead to his death than salvation. The hero then used the power he received from Zhao Kuang to grab the Toad Man, warning him that this was his last chance to survive. Under the pressure of the attack, the monster finally realized that it was better to obey, and he told about the passage to the sacred lands, the path to which was hidden deep in the gorge, inaccessible to ordinary people. A local resident begged not to kill him, offering that he could show them the right path to the place they had been looking for so long. Ling Xiao let him go, but warned him that if the Toad Man started lying, he would not hesitate to end his life. They continued on their way, and the road eventually led through dense bushes that an ordinary traveler would not be able to pass through. Along the way, they noticed a lot of women's clothes, and these turned out to be the clothes of the girls who died at the hands of the green beast, and by digging up the ground, one could even find their bones. The girl was surprised and frightened, and she could not understand why the police did not take measures to prevent these murders. Unfortunately, the police were powerless in this situation, and even the head of the country's police was only at the 3rd stage of Qi development. For creatures like these, even people with level 4 Qi were easy prey, and what's more, this creature was the weakest in its clan. But Xiao was still bothered by the thought that all these girls had died in vain, and that as long as the green monster was on the loose, new victims would appear again and again. The hero asked his friend not to worry about this, and after he received the information for which they came, this sect would disappear. In his previous life, he used the gate of this place to try to awaken the power, and then he was almost at the 5th stage and miraculously escaped death. That day, Li Yang and he fell into the trap of these creatures, and his comrade blamed himself, because it was because of him that they went this way. Soon all the cult members joined them, and there were 5 of them, each of them completely unique. The Toad Man slapped Ling Xiao in the face, noticing that the guy had rough skin and a strong physique, and this was not interesting to him. The creature was interested in girls, and why not go hunting for them? And it's much more interesting this way. The guy told them that if they wanted to kill him, let them kill him, and he made a serious mistake by falling into their trap. But if there is life after death, he promised to come back and take revenge. All this time, Liang blamed himself for what happened, and if they had gone a different way, none of this would have happened. The Black Widow approached them, and she didn't want to kill them so quickly. In her opinion, they were pretty good. Black Widow's plan involved draining the blood and then disposing of their human bodies, and this kind of killing suited her style. The guys were in shock, and they realized that these creatures could kill them, but this method was too cruel. A black snake intervenes in the conversation, offering his own option, and one of them had to give her his hands, and then they would be freed, on the condition that the second would observe all this. Her plan involved giving one of them his hands, after which they could be released, but on the condition that the other guy monitored this process. The hero understands that this group of psychopaths is mocking them, trying to break their psyche through their favorite pastime. The remaining two were called Centipede and Scorpio, and in their opinion, nowadays people are too selfish, and there is no point in sacrificing themselves for others. Ling Xiao understood that his comrade had not encountered such situations before and was very scared, and the guy had no choice but to sacrifice his hand. However, when he opened his mouth to offer his hand to these creatures, Liang suddenly beat him to the punch and insisted that his wrist be the one to be cut off. He realized that this was entirely his fault, and like a real man, he had to decide this issue himself, and if his friend respected him, then he should respect this choice. The black snake agrees with this decision. She didn't care whose limbs were cut off, and she was ready for it. A long snake tongue emerged from her mouth and tied Li Yan's hands. A moment later, she struck quickly with her sharp claws, and her best friend's arms were separated from his body. The memories of the previous life were still fresh in Ling Xiao's mind, and in this life, he needed to let the 5 poisons restore King Gu, and this method was perfect to make them suffer. They came to sacred lands where deadly poisons were scattered everywhere, and people had to be extremely careful here. The guy knew about this and suggested hurrying up, and he recommended the toad to talk less and move forward faster in order to get to the right place as quickly as possible. The girl followed him and admired how refined his level of energy control was, and the shield he surrounded them with was incredibly thin. The green man, in fact, led the unwanted guests into a trap, and although he lost to the hero in the village, his death on the sacred ground was inevitable. On the way, Shower notices rare flowers that she had recently seen in a biology textbook, and she was surprised that they grew here at every step. The reason was that poisons and medicines had similar characteristics, and this is where medicinal herbs flourished, which brought them to the area. This was the only place where one could lift the ice spider's curse and heal his elder brother's legs. Suddenly the Toadman stopped, ignoring the fact that they had not yet reached the end point, and it immediately became clear that the monster was up to something. Then he turned to someone and said that they had guests, and it was time to go out and greet them properly. The girl was scared and did not understand what the green man was talking about, and didn't he promise to take them to a safe place? The master of the 5 poisons remarks that she is stupid, and he only promised to carry them out, but did not say a word about the fact that he was not going to kill them here. Immediately after these words, several more creatures appeared near him, which, at first glance, were very similar to people. Now the whole family was gathered. They were glad that such wonderful toys themselves had fallen into their trap, and they were eager to play with them. Xiaoer tells his classmate that they are trapped and they need to leave as soon as possible, but Ling Xiao replies that if they leave now, they will not be able to lift the curse. The friend did not want him to risk his life for her, and if her fate was to die, then she was ready for it. But this is not the place for him to die. But the guy doesn't even want to listen to such words, and he does not agree to make such sacrifices because Xiaoer has a happy future ahead of him. He asks her to go ahead and wait for him for a while, and he is going to deal with these creatures. He has old scores to settle with them. After this, the hero uses his skill and moves the girl to a safe place, and this will allow him not to worry about her and concentrate. These creatures made a mistake when leaving their hideouts, and now they cannot use his girlfriend as a hostage. The cult members do not understand what this young man is talking about, and even if he sent the girl to another place, she will still die from the poisonous soil. Black Widow thinks that this guy underestimates her, and the whole clan is here, even the police are not a hindrance to them, and that this student is going to oppose them. Besides, they are on their own territory, and how he intends to fight them, even if the land will be another rival for him. The Black Snake decides to attack first, and it seemed that this fool was an easy prey, and she was already looking forward to taking his life. Her technique consists of many purple snakes heading towards Ling Xiao. A couple of days ago this might have been a problem, but now everything was different and a simple attack was not enough. The young man is full of confidence in his triumph, and his thoughts are occupied only with the question of how to get rid of all these creatures with one powerful blow and continue on his way as quickly as possible. Representatives of the cult continue to be surprised by the words of this boy, believing that even such an attack could end his life here and now. The number of creatures summoned is enormous, and it would be impossible for anyone else to get out of such a situation and still keep them cool. Suddenly the hero disappears, and the centipede beetle realizes that he has only temporarily disappeared, having made a very impulsive move. The villains suddenly notice that a bomb-like glow appears in the very center of the many snakes. A few seconds later, a huge explosion is heard, and the hero somehow moved to another place, leaving the explosives in his place. These are special mini-bombs that he borrowed from Director Hua before setting off on this journey. Ling Xiao is in absolute control of the situation and has an advantage when considering which opponent he should eliminate first. The frogman jumps several meters away, the explosion frightens him greatly, and he realizes that his opponent has great strength. Dealing with it quickly is not an option, and the best option now would be to step back and rethink your strategy. But his path is blocked by another series of explosions and another bomb attack, and the green man realizes that by staying here he risks dying. But the guy does not intend to just let go of this monster, and thanks to his concentration and speed, he quickly finds him and instantly reduces the distance. The enemy does not even have time to understand how Ling Xiao ended up behind him so quickly, and in this situation he will not be able to avoid his attack. The hero carries out a series of powerful blows using his unique technique, and he wants to finish off the master of poisons as soon as possible. The rest of the sect recognizes that this guy is very strong and a good plan is needed to defeat him. A voice out of nowhere announces that he is going to fight this crazy woman, and this voice also describes her as an incredibly scary opponent. Black Widow mistakenly believes that Scorpio is speaking to her, but in fact, the voice belongs to someone else. Most likely, this is the same guy, but the woman thinks that a member of her clan is deliberately trying to piss her off. The monster becomes enraged by such tricks, and he turns around in search of the guy, trying to tear him apart. Then he hears similar phrases from another part of the forest, and at that moment it becomes clear to him that an unexpected guest is behind all this. In an instant, the monster realized that this was a trap that he had fallen into with his stupidity, and Ling Xiao would be right behind him. The grass and miasma around made it nearly impossible to see properly, and the rest of the clan lost sight of Scorpio. They realized that this guy had outplayed them, and their inattention put them at a disadvantage. Black Snake suggests that they join forces as he aims to defeat them one at a time, and as long as they are together they have the advantage. At this time, the hero had already dealt with 2 opponents, and the scorpion lost even before the battle began. He was so confident in his invincibility that he did not even resort to disguise. His enemies may blame the forests and mountains for their situation, but he will decisively destroy them all, and their bodies will be left unattended. One cult member is enough to search for medicine. The rest can be safely eliminated. The hero throws distracting projectiles at the remaining opponents, and they are still disoriented and unable to develop a plan of action. The villains try to figure out where these items came from. In an attempt to emphasize their superiority, they shout that they are not afraid of a guy who is not pretending to be a ghost. A few seconds later, the enemies hear the familiar voice again, and the guy teases them. His goal is to get emotional and provoke them to do stupid things. The same voice announces the start of the game, and whoever can kill the other two clan members and survive will be pardoned. But the black snake doesn't even consider it seriously, and its disgustingness has caused its wrath, and it heads towards Ling Xiao to destroy him. The old woman is blinded by rage. She attacks everything around her for no reason and demands that the hero give her his life. He took advantage of the opportunity and attacked from above, and thanks to his speed and stealth, he had a strong advantage. A minute later, a huge steel pipe is stabbed into the black snake's back, and you wonder what it would be like to die from your own weapon. She once caused him to experience incredible pain and suffering, and all this time he was waiting for the moment to repay her in kind. The two remaining opponents do not have time to help them ally, and they are too slow to do so. How dare this student touch his boss, and the man intends to punish the guy and send him straight to hell. Black Widow is determined to fight, and at this moment she wants nothing more than to force the enemy to bring back the lives of their fallen comrades. The remaining clan members finally joined forces and attacked simultaneously, and Ling Xiao had to act quickly because despite the advantage, he was still vulnerable. Their powerful blows were accompanied by explosions, but were they able to hit such a dexterous fighter as this guy? After the smoke from their attacks cleared, they realized that their actions had killed their boss while their opponent remained unharmed. At first, the hero could not even believe his eyes, and this did not correspond to his plans, and he did not expect that the old woman would die at the hands of her comrades, which was very ironic. The guy felt superior, his face reflected confidence and a slight grin, and at some point he stopped and asked what they were going to do next. This situation completely infuriated the centipede, and he swore to himself that he would immediately end his life by forcing him to use his most powerful tool. The man promised Ling Xiao that these lands would become his grave, and then he concentrated all his energy and put it into the final blow. Unfortunately for him, his device was too clumsy, and it was easy for the hero to close the distance with him. This was a bad decision, and now the centipede's life was in the hands of the hero, and it was time to say goodbye to her. The guy decided not to waste time and finish everything with one blow, and as a result, a powerful explosion occurred, and the man had no chance to survive. The Black Widow, after what she saw, completely broke down, and she no longer wanted to fight, and she only claimed that she was not to blame for anything. Suddenly, Ling Xiao himself grabbed her and carried her away from the explosion, where her ally's detonating weapon lay. The explosion was so strong that even Xiao heard it, although she was quite far from the battle site. The guy took the last surviving cult member to a safe distance, saving her because he had plans related to her. Black Widow was shocked that she managed to survive this fight, and inside she had already accepted her death. Having come to her senses a little, the woman asked why Ling Xiao saved her, because she was one of his worst enemies. The hero did not answer her, and the widow thought that perhaps he fell for her beauty and liked her, and if so, then she would never have to hunt again. In fact, she should have cared less about all this nonsense, because she needed the guy's help for an important matter. Ling Xiao wanted to be taken to the heart of their sacred lands, to the treasure of the 5 poisons, and strongly recommended that she agree. If she does everything right, she will be rewarded with a painless death, otherwise she will be very sorry. After half an hour of travel, they were almost at the right place, and they had to hurry, because the sooner they found the right ingredients, the sooner they could leave this place. The girl, sharing her doubts with a classmate, decided to find out whether to trust the mysterious woman, who, as it turned out, was trying to deceive them by introducing herself as a green man. Convincing his girlfriend, the guy her assured that this time everything would be calm, promising that she would not do anything stupid, since she was well aware of the possible consequences of her actions. Although there was no abundance of medicinal herbs in the surrounding area, there was a special place where they grew much stronger and improved, capable of performing real miracles. That is why, in order to achieve their goal, they had to penetrate into the very core of the sacred lands, and Xiao despite her understanding, looked anxious, which was reflected on her face. The companion was eager to get a promise from her friend. The hero was forced to be especially careful, given that she did not want anything bad to happen to him. Ling Xiao assured her that she would be attentive, but for now, they needed to hurry since they had almost reached their goal. In appearance, it seemed that Xiao Er did not notice that the guy showed any feelings for her, and otherwise, the girl, considering herself big and ugly, was lurking in doubts. They finally arrived at the medical materials core, where Black Widow decided to test the traps first, expecting the unknown. Xiao Er had to submit to events with no other choice, and it was better to make such a decision than to face certain death. Returning a few minutes later, the woman reported that no traps had been found inside, and yet, as it turned out, they had never been placed there. Ling Xiao's classmate felt embarrassed by the boy's touch, thinking that he was groping her. However, the hero had no such intentions, and in fact, something strange was happening to his girlfriend, for she constantly expressed unusual thoughts. She probably really liked the guy, but she still had to understand whether their feelings were mutual or whether it was all in vain. They penetrated inside a huge cave, where a great number of medicinal herbs were now revealed, and the question of how they would find the necessary plants became important. But Ling Xiao was not worried about this, because she had an artifact with her that could extract all the valuable herbs from this place. The Black Widow did not immediately understand what he was up to, and after all, these herbs had been collected here for the last 10 years, and it seemed impossible to take them so easily. However, the hero was persistent in his plans, and putting a special ring on his finger, known as the spiritual ring, he began to absorb all the beneficial properties around him. This artifact turned out to be expensive and rare, which was surprised the Black Widow, and she did not expect to see something like this from an ordinary student. In her calculations, the Black Widow calculated that, having remained one of the sect, now all the wealth of this place should become her property. The guy improved the ring before coming here, but the internal space remained only 10 cubic meters, since he did not yet have enough strength for more. Ling Xiao seemed to have released almost all the valuables that were in the secret place, and the woman was completely shocked. However, there was still one thing left that was of great significance, as it provided a chance to restore Ling Xian's legs to health. Black Widow warned that in order to obtain this valuable ingredient, one must go to a place where ordinary people would not usually venture to go. Despite the warnings, the younger brother showed determination, and as a result, they reached a large gate, behind which was a remedy created from demon blood that could heal bones and muscles. The room inside sparkled with a bright red color, representing something that could transform an ordinary person into an outstanding martial artist, a real treasure. The girl was curious, wondering why this thing resembled blood, and she wondered if this was such a long-awaited treasure. Inside this red substance, one could see the bodies of worms. It turned out that the pool was filled with their blood. It turned out that this pool was not just made up of ordinary blood, and in fact, if an ordinary person spent half an hour in it, he would become an outstanding martial artist. This bath was created using the blood of the 5 Poisons King and was an extremely rare artifact, and how could Ling Xiao know so much about it? However, if he decides to strengthen his skills by bathing in it, the Black Widow advises him not to do so. The guy asked why, and his girlfriend suggested that the pool might be too toxic. The woman admitted that this was true, and if a human body fell into this extremely toxic pool, it would simply dissolve. It was eventually revealed that the Black Widow was lying about the toxicity of the pool, and her goal was only to prevent the use of this treasure. The guys found themselves in a difficult situation. They thought that only this pool could heal the bones of their older brother, but using it could lead to consequences fatal. Xiao Er was upset because she expected to improve her bones and muscles after bathing, and the girl really dreamed of becoming a martial artist. In her thoughts, she was happy because it seemed like they had fallen for a trick, and now she needed to get them out of there as quickly as possible. However, suddenly a magical hand grabbed her, and the hero decided to test the words about the pool in practice. Ling Xiao doubted his enemy's words, so it was easier to check whether a person would really die after immersing himself in this substance. The woman continued to lie and beg the guy to stop, claiming that her body would dissolve after diving into that pool. But the hero did not have time to listen to her chatter, and he had to use her body to test the truth. Quite recently, the pool was completely renovated, so that no one had used it yet, and this blood, despite its toxicity, has a phenomenal ability to improve the condition of bones and muscles, and yet this type of poison was completely exceptional. In fact, it was nothing more than a poison of liberation, which, surrounding the body of a person, gave him the opportunity to realize his deepest desires. In other words, whoever decides to plunge into this pool will be able to feel real satisfaction penetrating into the very depths of his being. The girl noticed that something strange had happened to the woman, and perhaps this poison causes similar emotions in people. Ling Xiao noticed that she seemed to have experienced pleasure, and it was probably not genuine, just a fantasy. The golden aura surrounding her was enhancing her body, which contradicted her statements about the danger of this pool, and this blood seemed to have no destructive effect at all. However, the pool still exhibited strange properties, and the guy interpreted it all a little differently. The golden glow around Black Widow's body indicated that this substance was working as intended. The red liquid inside the tank brought a feeling of absolute satisfaction to the person immersed in it. Xiao Er, unable to practice martial arts, decides to try her luck, and perhaps this is her only chance to fulfill her long-awaited dream. The girl asks her friend what about him, and this pool seems to be able to help those who seek to connect their lives with martial arts. The guy claims that this pool is not for him, and the use of such means could harm his reputation among the inhabitants of the kingdom of the immortals. Moreover, his divine resolution will be strengthened on its own, and there is no need to resort to such substances. A classmate understands his point of view, but she is still hesitant about immersing herself in this unusual substance. She asks herself whether she really aspires to become a true martial artist, and whether this has not been her main dream all her life. In the end, Xiao makes a decision, and she really wants it and is ready to take all possible steps to achieve her dream. The girl decides not to waste time and heads to the pool without even taking off her clothes, and she needs to hurry. Ling Xiao suggests that the effect will be much stronger if she completely undresses. The friend asks if he really wants her to undress right in front of him now. The hero realizes that something went wrong, and he only needed to offer help, and he did not need to peep at all. A young man accompanies his girlfriend, who has chosen a Black Widow as a pet, and now his classmate can safely visit the pool because he has promised to stand guard and ensure her safety. He desperately wanted to help his classmate, and he repeatedly went beyond safety to solve her problems, and the girl really wanted to express her gratitude to him, but did not know how to do it. Standing at the gate, Ling Xiao warns that if the girl screams too much, then he cannot guarantee complete confidentiality. Such thoughts irritate her greatly, but, in fact, the guy was just telling the truth. Inspired by what happened, Xiao Er, however, creates an awkward situation with her words. She has to hold back her screams, even if it takes all her effort. The temperature in the pool is not what it seemed, and in fact the water is very pleasantly warm. The guy stands outside, eagerly waiting for this whole story to end so he can return to his older brother. Suddenly, a woman's scream is heard from the pool room, and Xiao starts screaming and asking for help for some reason. The hero immediately rushes to her aid, wondering if the witch lied and the water in the pool is poison. Entering the room, Ling Xiao finds his girlfriend sitting in the pool, waving her arms as if she is drowning. He has to act quickly to avoid possible consequences due to his carelessness. Entering the pool, the guy discovers that the water is very shallow and cannot understand how she could feel the threat of drowning. The hero grabbed her hand, and the girl rushed into his arms, finding herself safe. Now she is completely naked in his arms, and this moment brings something new to their relationship. Xiao tries to explain her behavior, but her words are cut off halfway. The accidental slip made her think something terrible had happened, causing her to go into hysterics. Ling Xiao realizes that the situation is unusual, and he has to say something to calm her down. Only after this the girl realizes her situation and asks the guy to leave, but in the end she still wonders how attractive he thinks she is. The guy replies that she should no longer scream over little things, because he was truly scared for her. Xiao'er continued to stand in this amazing pool. A strange feeling ran through her body, one that she had never experienced before. The feeling was so pleasant that the girl tried to figure out what was happening to her body, and something unusual was happening, and she tried to understand its nature. At this time, the Black Widow came to her feelings, and the hero, curious, asked her what she felt when she found herself in the red water. The answer was unexpected, and the best thing to do is try it yourself, on the advice of the Black Widow. This answer aroused the guy's interest, and the woman, who had not yet fully come to her feelings, began to tell some strange stories. Suddenly, the boy noticed that the sound outside the door had disappeared, implying that his classmate had either fallen into a coma or absorbed all the energy from the pool. Ling Xiao decided to go inside, believing that some strange situation had happened again, or perhaps he needed to be saved by something. However, it turned out that everything was in order, and the girlfriend stood in front of him, already dressed, and did not look the way he expected. Xiao'er noticed that the guy's gaze made her feel embarrassed and asked why he entered without knocking. The friend demanded to leave, citing the need to finish getting dressed. Ling Xiao was surprised by the change in his friend's behavior, because just a few minutes ago she was hugging him completely naked. Coming closer, he began to carefully examine her, and this made her classmate even more embarrassed. It turned out that the hero paid attention to the place where the seal of the frost spider had recently been, and now there was no trace of it left. Xiao'er asked if he really looked at her so carefully because of this seal, and the guy confirmed. The girl was surprised, and she needed to stop thinking about vulgar things, and yet she stood naked in front of him, and he didn't even pay attention. Suddenly, Ling Xiao put his hand on her stomach, and she got scared and asked what he was doing and why he suddenly wanted to touch her. The hero used his special technique to pick her up, and her friend thought that he was very two-faced, and at first he rejected her, and now he does this. The guy asked not to move, and he needed to study the veins and bones to determine if the pool had any effect. It was the first time since his rebirth that he was trying to sense another person's energy, and at this level of cultivation it was difficult. Fortunately, Xiao'er's body was easier to perceive for some reason. At this time, the girl tried to hide her pleasure from being stroked on her stomach. The results were impressive and her bones improved, and the seal no longer bothered her, and this pool was absolutely amazing. Now she could freely practice any martial arts. Unfortunately, the pool itself was now useless, and the girl's body had absorbed all of its energy. The color of the pool changed to blue, and now her body was strong, allowing her to use any techniques. If she was in doubt, Ling Xiao suggested simply hitting the wall of this room. The friend had been waiting for a long time for this day when she would finally become strong and be able to protect her loved ones.